address the United Nations about Syria.
Yeah, do not have a city attorney.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Here.
Councilmember Irvin? Here. Councilmember Degree?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Neihardt?
Present.
Mayor Stone?
Here. And the salute to the flag will be led by Councilmember Irvin.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We didn't have a closed session this evening, so there is definitely no report. Do we have any cards on the consent calendar by chance? Okay, seeing none. Just wanted to make a note on the consent calendar that Mayor Pro Tem Neihardt and I, on the last meeting, mistakenly voted on the minutes, so it's back on, and we weren't at the meeting. So it's back on for this agenda, and I will be abstaining from the minutes, and I'm sure
As
she
will I.
There you go. Any other comments from council on the consent calendar? Councilmember Degree?
I made a correction. I think you already have it. It was the one, I forget where it was, but it was so that we didn't have to take, I can show it to you.
Oh, the
Jane.
previous minutes, yes, that's been made.
Yeah, because you corrected
I
it.
thought you were talking about tonight's minutes. Okay.
From last meeting. You're already
Right.
on the record on that one?
It's the
Right.
same minutes.
Yes, yes.
The
So that
corrections-
correction has been made.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
and Mayor Stone, the voter tally sheets from the last meeting where you appointed to the Open Space and Parkland Committee Advisory Committee, those sheets will be included when the minutes are finalized after this meeting.
Okay. So where would members of the public be able to find that?
They'll be on the website,
Okay,
yeah.
great. Okay, do we have a motion? Councilmember O'Neill?
I'd like to move that we approve the consent calendar except for item number 2, the minutes of August 12th, 2013.
Do you want to pull that, or you just,
Well, that's the one that only 3 of us could vote on, isn't it?
Yeah, but we can do it.
we'll abstain, so.
Yeah,
So you're just going to abstain for all of them?
one item.
No, just for item number 2,
Oh,
we're abstaining.
Okay. All right, then I move that we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Councilmember Irvin?
A second.
Okay, let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Right. And that brings us, we have a couple special presentations tonight. First one is the Fog Fest. I saw a couple members out there. You want to come forward? It's Fire Prevention Month. Hi.
Give you a poster. They usually give the city a
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good.
I feel a little bit like I'm at the hospital.
Can you guys hear me? I'm the current president now. My name is Larry Passmore of the Fog Fest. And I just wanted to introduce some of the other members here tonight. This is Diane Hart. She is in charge of the parade committee, and she's also our secretary. And then Ann Cooney back there, who's in charge of sponsorships now. And then Linda Jonas, who is now, or is currently our treasurer also. So, and community groups she's in charge of. So I just wanted to say thank you to the city of Pacifica for the 28 years of helping us out and 28 years of support. So it's been really great. Just a couple reminders, the Fog Fest is this Saturday. It starts at 10 o'clock, and it is Sunday also, and it runs until 6 o'clock every day. So come on down. A couple of things really quick. For the past 13 years, the Fog Fest group has donated money back to organizations throughout Pacifica. And that started around 2000. And last year, we donated about $49,600 back to these organizations. To date, since 2000, it's about $659,000. And you can go onto the website and see who the organizations are. And they all work during the Fog Fest, so that's how they become eligible to receive funds back to them. So this year, oh, I just also wanted to mention too, there has also been a couple of gifts back to Pacifica. One of them is there's a bench at the Rotary Plaza Center. I believe it's at Mildred Owens. So we donated that back. And then there's also a nice picture down at the community center. It's the one in the back there with the nice surf scene of Lindemar Beach. And then this year's poster, it was drawn up by a local. His name is Rick Loper. So we're trying to keep things back to the local area here. Cool. So on behalf of the 2013 Fog Fest Board, we'd like to present you there with this and say thank you to the city once again. So thank you.
Yeah, please bring it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And also, there is Cindy Abbott is out there, and she's our Green Team Coordinator. So sorry I missed you, Cindy. So thank you again.
Do we have any questions or comments from council about the Fog Fest? Mr. Passmore, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Well, you haven't called since I'm the Fog Fest liaison, so you haven't needed me, I guess. But I am so sad that I can't even begin to think how many years, 16 years lining up the parade, innumerable years on the board. I am actually going to miss the parade this year, but I'll be around on Sunday.
Right.
I know. Fog, as usual, you do an amazing job of pulling together a festival that we can all be proud of, and I'm sure you're going to do it again. And I just want to thank the board and thank new members or relatively new members for stepping in and taking over, because that really ensures succession of a very excellent venue for showing off our town, and also for showing off, just our community spirit and how much we work together. I just can't thank the board enough, and I can't thank all the volunteers in the groups enough that participate. It really is what makes FogFest special, and I thank everyone, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
All right.
Councilmember Irvin?
Yeah, again, I would just like to say thank you so much for all of your many, many days and months of work. I know how much time and energy you put into this, and the whole city of Pacifica really looks forward to it. And everybody's there every year, and the parade is such a wonderful and unifying event. And, I just really thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the hard work that you put into the city that you love. And I'm really looking forward to it. I can't wait. Thank you.
Councilmember Degree?
And you worked very well with PG&E, so I think there's a happy alliance there. Thank you.
Yeah, everything's going real well with that.
Good. I don't see any more lights. So just want to thank you. I know it's going to be a great event. You guys have put in a lot of hard work, and the whole team, and we're really looking forward to it. And so thank you for all the build-up, and looking forward to Saturday.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you. All right, next we have a proclamation for Fire Prevention Month. Hi, Chief.
Good evening.
Can I read a proclamation, or do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
All right.
All yours.
So, we are proclaiming October 2013 as Fire Prevention Month. The City of Pacifica and North County Fire Authority is committed to ensuring the safety and security of those living and visiting our city. Fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are the location where people are at their greatest risk from fire. U.S. Fire Department responded to 370 home structure fires. The cause of these fires, or the cause of 13,910, 13,910 caused civilian injury, 2,520 civilian death, and 6.9 billion in direct damages. Cooking is the leading cause of house fire, as you might imagine. The U.S. Fire Department responded to an estimated annual average of 156,600 cooking-related fires between 2007 and 2011, resulting in 400 civilians passing away, 5,080 civilians injured, and 853 million in direct damages. The City of Pacifica and North County Fire Authority responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home injury fires through prevention and protection education. The City of Pacifica's residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. So, I, Len Stone, Mayor of Pacifica, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2013 as Fire Prevention Month in the City of Pacifica. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor Stone, council members. On behalf of Chief Myers, North County Fire Authority, and the Pacifica firefighters, we just want to thank you very much for your continued support of the fire department. And as usual, in October, we go to all the schools in the community, K through 5. And additionally, on the third Saturday of the month, which will be the 19th, we have an open house at Lindemar. And for those in council and the public who have been there before, the firefighters do a real good job of making it very interesting. So we hope everybody can come down and participate with us and learn a little bit about the fire department and see our firefighters at work. So thank you again very much.
Great. Councilmember O'Neill.
I wanted to just kind of read a email I got from a woman that used to live in Pacifica. She actually used to be on the Jefferson Elementary School Board, and she has moved up to somewhere in the Sierras, but she sent me an email saying, I understand Pacifica Fire Department sent members to the Rim Fire. I live about 5 minutes from Tuolumne City, so I've been extremely concerned about the fire, which was less than 10 miles from my home. I would like to ask you to convey my thanks to all the firefighters at Pacifica Fire Department. Having 5,000 firefighters in this county has given us comfort knowing that they are working so very hard to protect us all. I'm sure that the staff at home has had to pull extra shifts to cover for those gone. We thank them too. So I just wanted to pass that on to the fire department.
Thank you very much. We did send 10 people up, so.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I just wanted to thank the fire department and take this opportunity to say that this month is a great time to remember to clean those chimneys. It was, we're approaching the 5-year anniversary of the fire next door to my house, and it was started in chimney and fireplace and clean up the things around that fireplace. It's a great prevention effort that you can do, and we lost a life in that fire, and I just really want to commend once again the fire department for their tremendous response and all the communities that responded that night to a pretty ferocious fire. So thank you.
Welcome.
Councilmember Irvin.
Again, just thank you very much for all your years of perseverance and dedication to the City of Pacifica and all across the state of California. You truly are our heroes, and please send our gratitude and thanks to all the men and women in the department.
Thank you.
Councilmember DeGree.
I have a question. I didn't catch the time on the 19th. That's such a great event, very educational.
It's 10 to 2.
10 to 2 on the 19th.
10 to 2 on the 19th. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you for having repeat that date. We went last year. It was really a great event, and it did kind of, I remember, scare my wife a little bit into making sure we checked all of our smoke detectors and everything. So it did the right thing. So and it's really fun for the kids and other people that want to see how the station works.
Yeah, they do a real good job down there. So
Yeah, thank you.
very proud of that.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Last special presentation is update on Poet Laureate process from the PB&R subcommittee.
Good evening, council members, staff, and Pacifica community members. I'm Cindy Abbott, and I'm currently serve as the Chair Pro Tem of the Pacifica Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Commission. I'm pleased to be here this evening on behalf of the PB&R Commission to announce that we kindly solicit nomination forms composed Poet Laureate. Okay, that was my attempt at haiku. I will not be applying. Something I learned back in elementary school. So translation is the City of Pacifica is now accepting nominations for the city's next Poet Laureate. The Poet Laureate will be an honorary 3-year position. three-year position. During the term, the Poet Laureate will act as ambassador and advocate for poetry and the literary arts, and will represent the city of Pacifica and the art of poetry through various outreach activities. To be eligible to be Pacifica's Poet Laureate, one must be 18 years of age or older, available to serve a 3-year term that we anticipate to begin in December of 2013, be a Pacifica resident who has been recognized for poetry and their literary contributions, and have a demonstrated commitment to and passion for poetry and a willingness to embrace the opportunity to engage in community service and make poetry more accessible and available. Finally, to demonstrate a willingness to serve as an ambassador for Pacifica in poetry at public events such as readings, workshops, and visiting schools. Both nominations of community members and self-nominations will be considered for this honorary post. The nomination process includes providing 2 to 3 paragraphs on why you or your nominee should be Pacifica's next Poet Laureate, how you or your nominee will contribute and participate in that role, accomplishments and qualifications of the nominee, and you or your nominee's understanding and appreciation for Pacifica's cultural, political, economic, and geographical diversity, and most importantly, be able to describe that in poetic form. Nominees are asked to provide a current resume of professional activities and achievements and up to 10 pages of their written work. Applications are available through the PB&R website. They're available online under the PB&R Commission page, also at the PB&R department, at the Pacifica Community Centers and libraries. The flyers will be posted throughout town in the paper and in various online publications. After we receive the nominations, the Poet Laureate Selection Committee will include representatives from Oceana and Terra Nova High Schools, Skyline College, the local arts and business community, along with members of the PB&R Commission. We'll review all the application materials and conduct interviews with the top nominees. As noted earlier, we anticipate that process to be complete in December. I'd like to express thanks to Commissioners Uri, Tabor, who is here, and members of the PB&R and all members of the PBR Commission, along with Director Perez, for working together to develop this process for nominating and selecting the next Poet Laureate for the City of Pacifica. And I'd also like to recognize that we reached out to Marcy Dragoon at County Supervisor Warren Slocum's office. She was generous with her time and sharing of information and tools that they used recently to select the Poet Laureate for the County of San Mateo. This input was invaluable to us. Nominations due by October 23. Please to all apply. The deadline for receipt of the nomination forms and documents is the 5th of October, 23rd, and the City of Pacifica Parks, Beaches, and Recreation Commission looks forward to receiving the nominations. Thank you.
Cindy? Any questions or comments from council? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, next up is item number 7, adoption of resolution approving rezoning development plan, adoption of resolution approving amendment to the general plan, local coastal plan, adoption of the resolution recommending the California Coastal Commission approval of a local coastal plan use amendment.
Hang on before you start.
Oh, you have to recuse yourself, don't you?
I have to recuse myself just so the public understands I live within a little bit of 500 feet.
Take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The proposal before you is the adoption of a conceptual plan that would lead to the redevelopment of the former wastewater treatment plant located at 2212 Beach Boulevard. The city retained the Leland Consulting Group to provide the city with a redevelopment evaluation for the Beach Boulevard property. They produced the highest and best use study on February 2011 that discusses various redevelopment concepts. On September 14, 2011, the City Council held a study session on the Beach Boulevard project. The Leland Consulting Group presented a report that included a recommended preliminary plan that showed a boutique hotel, restaurant, residential units, underground parking, and a library. At the conclusion of the study session, the council expressed agreement to move the project forward to the next steps. Those next steps are the necessary environmental studies and land use changes required to facilitate the development contemplated by the preliminary plan. The proposed conceptual plan involves rezoning the 3.5-acre publicly owned site to allow for a mixed-use development that would include approximately 36,500 square foot library, public library, with an internal cafe, a boutique hotel of up to 75 rooms, a waterfront restaurant of up to 4,500 square feet, and up to 84 attached residential units. The proposed project has been developed through a process that has involved public input and meetings and a partnership between the City of Pacifica and San Mateo County. Development and operation of the library will be managed jointly by the City of Pacifica and San Mateo County. For the remaining portions of the site, the city expects to enter into a negotiated sale with one or more private developers who will then build the residential and commercial portions of the project per a development agreement. Based on market conditions and the final agreement between the city and the developers, the amount of housing, hotel rooms, and commercial space may be less than the amount described. Therefore, for this purpose, the land uses identified represent an estimate of the future uses and a maximum envelope that future development will not exceed, with the final build-out possibly being less than what has been described. There are no specific design plans for the project site. While designs for the library are in development, designs for the rest of the project site are conceptual and more programmatic. The proposed project will be part of a development of a planned development and specific plan, which will require subsequent detailed architectural design review and consistency with existing city policies and zoning regulations. The objective of the project will be developed as will be to reposition the project site to become a centerpiece of redevelopment and revitalization of Palmetto Avenue, Main Street, and the West Sharp Park neighborhood, and to better connect the city's designated Main Street to the promenade and beach. A draft environmental impact report was prepared by the city's environmental consultant, RBF Consulting, and circulated for public comment. On July 15, 2013, the Planning Commission certified the environmental impact report. The environmental impact report found that the environmental impacts associated with this project can be mitigated and reduced to less than significant levels. The project requires a rezoning from public facilities to planned development, a general plan, local coastal plan land use amendment from public facilities to mixed use, and approval of a development plan. On July 15, 2013, the Planning Commission reviewed the proposal and recommended City Council approval of the rezoning, general plan, local coastal plan, land use plan amendment, and approval of the development plan. The development plan sets out the parameters for development, including land use, circulation, and concepts for building siting. If the council approves the proposal, the next steps involved will be, first, the certification of the local coastal land use amendment by the California Coastal Commission. Secondly, development of the site fully or partially would then require approval of a specific plan. A specific plan provides more detail on the building plans and would be required to subsequently be approved along with a coastal development permit by the Planning Commission. I'd like to mention that later this morning, staff received a letter from Corey Torelson and Deborah Johnson of 77 Montecito, and copies were provided to council where they listed some objections to the project, and staff believes that those objections have been addressed through the development process. I'd also like to mention a few minor corrections. The resolution that recommends the California Coastal Commission approval of the the local coastal plan land use on the whereas number 4 and 6, the date should be September 23rd, 2013. It says August 19th, but it should be September 3rd, 23rd. Okay. In addition, staff had a conversation with the California Coastal Commission early this afternoon, and it was suggested that in the language on the same resolution that describes the concept that somehow development plan be something that description is the development plan. So staff is suggesting inserting that that description basically is known as the development plan.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much.
Any questions for staff from council? Councilmember Degree?
Could you go over one more time your meeting with with the Coastal Commission? I'm not quite sure I follow that. Can you repeat that?
Yes, earlier today we had a conference call with the California Coastal Commission, and they about the development plan and what is the development plan. And in the resolution that recommends them approving the local coastal land use plan, there's a description of basically what the development plan is. So they, thought maybe it might be to mention that, insert that some language that says that is the development plan, what's been described in the resolution.
So you fixed it, or you're going to add that?
Yes, we will add that description is the development plan.
Councilmember Irvin?
Just clarifying what steps are going to be happening next. If, for instance, the council approves it tonight and then it will go to the California Coastal Commission, and then what is the timeline? Then it would go up for sale, I would imagine.
Yeah, our understanding is that once the initial entitlements are finalized, and that would be once the Coastal Commission certifies the local coastal program amendment,
Okay.
then I believe that Leland and Associates would come back into the picture to market the site to prospective developers. Now, I don't know exactly what the timeline for that process is. We're actually having a meeting with Leland in early October, I think, to discuss that very
Right.
thing. But then again, it's a matter of waiting for a interested developer to come forward with a proposal.
And one other question, if, for instance, the developer comes and he has somewhat different ideas, with the residential units or the hotel, what happens at that point if those ideas are different than what is currently being, that is in our best interest?
Yeah, and I think, that sort of gets to the issue that the Coastal Commission staff was interested in.
Okay.
Which is, we have a framework plan, which is sort of the build-out scenario beyond which according to this approval, you cannot go.
Exceed.
If a developer came in and had some different ideas about what they might want to do on this site, it probably depends on how different the ideas are.
Okay.
I think there probably is some flexibility, and there's intended to be some flexibility. But by the same token, the elements of the concept plan need to be in place. That is what we have put through this public process. That's what we analyzed in the EIR, and I think that's the public perception and expectation of what's going to happen on this site. If someone came in, perchance, with a vastly different idea of what they wanted to do in this site, it could be that they would then have to go back and essentially amend the concept plan, which would essentially be another LCP amendment that the Coastal Commission would have purview
Go back,
over.
and would it go back to the Planning Commission as well?
It would go back to the Planning Commission, would come to you, and would probably
Okay.
have to go to the Coastal Commission again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Degree?
Yeah, a couple more questions. So what about affordable housing? What about the library? If a developer comes in and wants to take the whole site, is the library protected, or how does that work?
There is a site that's essentially set aside for the library. Obviously, we have a bit more information about the library than we have for the rest of the site, because that's undergoing sort of a development plan on its own. But the site has been set aside. We have worked in a coordinated way with the library team to make sure that that is an adequate site for their purposes.
And the housing element says up to, but it could be less. Doesn't say anything about affordable. When does
Well,
that
again,
come in?
any housing development would be subject to the below market rate inclusionary housing ordinance that the city has in the books.
And public input is still possible all along the way, correct?
Well, there'll actually be several opportunities for public input after tonight. There will be the Coastal Commission process that will inevitably lead to a public hearing. And there, I imagine, will be a number of public hearings when the site is actually proposed to be developed.
Now, does the Coastal Commission actually call a meeting, a public hearing on it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open up public comment now for a couple cards. Sue Beckmeyer's first one, followed by
I have a question. Can
Brian
they hear in the
O'Flynn.
back? Can they hear in the back?
followed by Eric Rushames. I think so. Couldn't hear George.
Good evening. I'm Sue Beckmeyer, co-president of the Pacifica Library Foundation, and I'm here to speak in support of this project, the proposal for the redevelopment of the Beach Boulevard parcel to include the boutique hotel, restaurant, housing units, and my favorite part, the new library. I speak also on behalf of our entire board, the Library Foundation board, and we are very supportive of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian O'Flynn.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thanks for your public service. I'm here as a neighbor. I own property just north of the site on Beach Boulevard, and for about the last 15 years. I've been waiting a long time, and many of the neighbors have in the Slaughter Beach neighborhood for the development of the site. And I want to commend the city and staff for being forward-thinking and coming up with the city's desired development plan, and then putting that forward and see what how the developers come and respond to that, as opposed to having a developer drive that particular process. I think it benefits the city because they get what the city would like to see on the site, and also it takes a big question mark out of the from the developer's perspective in terms of what they're looking at, what they could possibly do for their planning purposes. I think that it'll do a great deal for the Palmetto Main Street Historic District concept. It's a great local street. It just needs a bit more impetus. It's also a street that's entirely locally driven with local businesses. You won't see any chains on Palmetto, but as you can see, there's a certain number of vacancies and things, and we could use a bit more business in the area. And to that also citywide, I think the tax revenue from this project will be a big boost to city services, which we're in dire need of. I'm also supporting the library's location there, and I just would recommend that the project to be approved, or at least the process go forward at this point with this use of the site for the hotel, which I think is a great location for a small boutique hotel. And I'd recommend that the city planning department and the city council and the city planning commission focus on maybe a design driven project, which would be a real sort of asset architecturally to the area with coastal, some sort of a coastal consistent and site-specific architecture, and also green building materials whenever possible in the green process, and also durable building materials since it is on the coast and it's a very extreme environment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Eric Rushames.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Eric Rushames. I'm past president of the Pacifica Library Foundation, and I will just echo what the previous two speakers said. I've been privileged to be a part of this project since the beginning and have been working with city staff and county staff to move it forward, and I really think this is a fabulous opportunity to do something positive for the community in many different ways in terms of a library we desperately need, development we need, a downtown that we need, and visitor services that we need. So it's a great project. I commend the council for its support of it to this point and urge you to continue that support and move forward. And I also think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention and give credit to our previous city manager, Steve Rhodes, for all the hard work that he put into moving this project forward and bringing the people together. He did a great job of getting us forward, and I want to make sure that he gets the public credit that he deserves for his efforts as well. And I thank the council for their previous support And I did all of that in a minute.
Thank you. Okay, I have no more cards on this, so I'll bring it back to council. Councilmember O'Neill?
So if the new developer comes, and I was just looking at parking, because parking always seems to be an issue at Rockaway and stuff, would this be eligible for in lieu parking fees, or can we, I'm just concerned about parking in the neighborhood.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of emphasis in the environmental document on parking to make sure that that the parking that is going to be provided will service all the different uses. This is not an area of town that has an in lieu parking program, so it's our presumption that the parking will be provided to support the uses.
Okay. I know in the report it said that, but I just wanted to double check. Thanks.
Councilmember Degree?
Right. I was concerned that nothing was stated by anybody about sea level rising. I've gone to two county, both South County and our county, with members of our staff there as well, about sea level rising. So the engineers and things seem to be concerned about it in our area. This is right on the beach. When is that looked into?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways that will be dealt with through the development of the site. As you know, as you said, the proximity to the ocean is direct, and there are ways to design to anticipate inundation, in any development. And I think that that's going to be the task, of the designers of this particular parcel. We've had these conversations with some of the Coastal Commission staff already. It is an issue that is continuing and will have to be analyzed as we go on. But again, it's hard to know what sort of design we're going to be faced with. It's hard to know what the intensity of that use is. It's hard to know what engineering methods will be available to us at that time.
Does the Coastal Commission give any kind of criteria or checkoff list about
not as of yet
addressing it?
I think that the problem that we face with the sea level rise issue is very similar to the issue of the greenhouse gases some years ago, where initially there was an emphasis on trying to mitigate, deal with the hazardous conditions, but there wasn't a lot of direction being given in a statutory way. My expectation is that will happen. It just hasn't happened yet. And I think part of the problem is that the science necessary to support some sort of conclusion, in our view, at least we haven't seen that evidence yet.
Well, as a coastal city, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'd like to make sure that we have some leadership, that we at least have this on the front page, because I know, what is it, not Alameda, what's the one off the bridge? They have been working on that island where the World's Fair was, where they have done a lot of revetment of types, whatever they're used, and moved back the structures so that if it does come, when it does come, they won't have to, be sunk. They can still function.
Right.
I know that Burlingame, for example, was at the same meeting I was, and that council person also was extremely concerned about losing their economic base on the bay side, and that's the bay side. So I would really like to see that on the front burner in some way so that we don't look ridiculous. Parking, just some of you weren't around at the time, but I remember at the time this site was taken over, had the right to develop by, what was it, Swenson Group, and they were going to do underground parking. And at one of the meetings, I mentioned this before, the representative came and said that having underground parking was going to be difficult because it was more sway from the water. So I believe this had some underground parking too as well. So I just want to, don't know if we have any data on that at all.
Well, we do have some, but again, we don't have a specific design to look at either. And the parking that we've contemplated as part of this concept plan is sort of this partially above, partially below ground parking, which from our understanding is feasible. Again,
that was 10 years ago.
Right. Well, this was more recent than that. So again, once we get a project, we'll be able to analyze that, and presumably those engineers will be able to engineer for that.
Councilmember Irvin?
Yeah, just on that note, I would like to thank the Planning Commission for the work, because I understand that there was a lot of questions asked in terms of underground parking and sea level rising and wave impact and things like that. So I think that they were demonstrating a lot of concern and interest about the fact that we lived in a coastal zone, and those were being addressed by the consultants to a pretty strong degree. And I appreciate the thoroughness of the questions that were being asked during the Planning Commission, when the Planning Commission heard the Beach Boulevard project. And I'd also just really like to thank again the city and our prior city manager and the planning department, who have all done extensive work on this project and really been forward-thinking, ensuring that, as many speakers so eloquently said, that we're getting the project that we think best suits Pacifica. I think it's just a great demonstration of the way to have things done in the city with the limited numbers of developments that we will have going forward. This is just a project that I am really proud to be part of, and I'm really happy to make a motion whenever we're ready.
Great. So just a quick comment. Thank you for the report, and I did read all the minutes and caught some of the Planning Commission meeting on this, and it was very extensive. Thank you for mentioning that, Councilmember Irvin. But everything that Councilmember Irvin mentioned, it was very helpful in this process, because they took a lot of that those questions and all the questions I think that we might have on the environmental level and sea level rise and other things. And was very helpful. So please extend our thanks to the commission, if you would. And I did want to echo the other council members' comments about Steve Rhodes' contribution and the entire planning department's contribution on this. I think, Sue, what is it, over the last couple years, we might have voted to move this along like 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So this is just another piece, and we're looking forward to seeing what's out there in the market. So. I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Irvin, you'd like to make a motion?
So I know there's several different motions. Do I just
Take them separate.
Okay, so the first one would be, I move that the ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Pacifica reclassifying RZ 19112, property of 2212 Beach Boulevard, APN, can't read, 016-204-020 and 016-294-510, from public facilities to plan development with a development plan." Where did it stop? DP 7412 for the redevelopment of a 3.5 acre lot to mixed-use development.
Is that the right spot, Michelle?
Is that, am I off?
I guess the motion is to introduce and waive the first reading for the ordinance that you just listed.
That is correct. That is the recommended
Oh, I'm
action.
sorry. Okay.
There's actually, if you see, there's 2 paragraphs there. One actually contains a recommendation on 3 resolutions, and then the second paragraph is about the ordinance. I think
Okay.
doing what you did is fine. We can do it in any order. I don't know that it really matters, but we do need to take them separately as the city attorney.
Okay, I'm sorry. I could just
We can do that. Let's do that, and then if there's a second, we can move to the other one.
do a quick one.
Council.
I second it.
Okay, please vote. And that passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. Or sorry, they're not abstaining. I did this last time. Recusal from Mayor Pro Tem. And do the second one.
So then the second one, adoption of I just want to make sure I get them all down straight now. Adoption of resolution approving amendment to the general plan, local coastal land use plan. Would that be this?
Do you,
See the,
it might be easier if you just look at the council action requested.
On page 74 of the packet.
Right.
right. So I have right here.
And you can take all of those resolutions.
Yeah, adoption
one
of
act.
resolution approving rezoning development plan. Adoption of resolution approving amendment to the general plan, local coastal land use plan. Adoption of resolution recommending California Coastal Commission approval of a local coastal land use plan amendment. And adoption of ordinance rezoning property to,
We already did that
We
one.
already did that.
okay.
And if you could include in the motion the minor
As amended.
corrections and the 1 minor amendment that we recommended, that would be great.
Okay, as amended.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, please vote. All right, and that passes 4-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Mike, would you mind getting, oh, if she doesn't. It's safe to come out now.
Wherever you are.
That leads us to council communications. Whomever would like to go first.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem, coming in hot.
Well, I had an opportunity to get mine together. There's been several meetings that I've attended since we were last here, and several things that are going on, both in the county as well in the region, that I wanted to tell the council about. So that's kind of what I'm about here tonight. If you haven't looked at the draft congestion management plan, you probably should, that CCAG did. Certainly, some of the intersections very much relate to us in Pacifica. And I would again encourage people that we're looking for committee members, and there's a number of committees that CCAG has that other council could be on. So those include airport land use, BPAC, congestion management and environment, the stormwater, and that's going to become really important because we've lost our state funding. So we're looking at how do we fund stormwater management, and then resource management and climate protection. So those are all out there. And if you're interested, I have the plan with me. I also wanted to let you know that we have funded the position for a bicycle and pedestrian coordinator in the county, and that funding is for 2-year cycle, and then we'll reevaluate it. And so BPAC is going to have one of those folks available, but 50% of that funding comes from the county, another 25% from CCAG, and 25% from Sandtrams. I've listened to more legislative updates than you can imagine, both at CCAG and at ABAG, but that's the Association of Bay Area Governments, which I'll get to in a second. But one thing I thought you might want to know, that the Steinberg Amendment, SB 731, which was the CEQA reform, that's kind of gone away. And I say kind of in that it's become part of a gut and amend bill and has gone into the 2-year cycle. And the reason for that, it seems, is it's become more about Sacramento Arena than it has been about CEQA, which happens with these bills sometimes. So if you were watching that, I wanted you to know that. There's a number of others, and certainly you can look at the packet for our updates. I also attended, and one other thing from CCAG. You probably know that, and it was at CCAG and also at ABAG, at the Association of Bay Area Governments, that there were a number of amendments to the One Bay Area Plan. It's probably public knowledge that ABAG and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission are actually being sued over One Bay Area, which you wouldn't be surprised about at all. So, but I wanted to point out to everybody that the One Bay Area Plan is on a 4-year cycle, essentially. It's up for redo in 2017, which means that it has to be, the whole planning process has to start over again. So everything that we've done over the last 4 years, not we, I wasn't part of it, but now I will be, has to happen again. And next year starts the $8 million grants for planning for the priority development areas. So things that we're thinking about as a community and wanting to potentially get into a priority development area, we need to be thinking about for the next cycle and whether or not we can advocate for that. You know, it's an interesting process watching all of that. So you've received your updates. I also wanted to say those are transient-oriented affordable housing grants. Those are the $8 million worth of planning grants that'll be handed out. There's also a number of energy projects that are going on, and if you haven't looked at, and for the public that's here, Bay Area REN, or Bay REN is what it's called, has a number of efficiency grants for homes, and they come from single-family homes all the way through to commercial homes or commercial properties, so that you can look at your energy efficiency and try to reduce your costs. And the last thing I wanted to just mention, and there's a bunch of other things that happen. ABAG is a long meeting, you guys. It's a whole nother world. Very interesting, being on that executive board. But the fall assembly, which Mike, I think you're the representative for, the fall assembly is actually being combined with the estuary partnership, and you may have seen this, but if you haven't, it's not going to be the traditional ABAG assembly. It will instead be coupled with estuary partnership for San Francisco, and that's going to be the 29th and 30th. Of October. Yeah, so the dates changed too. I thought you probably want to know that from the 19th.
They haven't told me. No.
They haven't said a word. Yeah, of course not. Okay, and it'll be at the Oakland Marriott. We also, since last I was here, Economic Development Committee met. A lot of members are going off that committee, but the really nice thing about that particular committee is that everybody wished the next group well, because it's kind of going to be a reiteration. And so they talked about the idea of renewing objectives and looking at it, meeting with council. So for people coming forward for that, that'll be a good opportunity, and probably having some involvement if we get to have an economic development coordinator. And there was a whole bunch of events and things, but I just wanted to say it was really nice to be with the rest of the council, or at least 3 of you were there on Saturday with Jackie Spear, because she really made quite a statement about things that are going on nationally, so I feel very informed. But her statement about, and if you haven't seen it on YouTube, about SNAPs and being on food stamps is just, it's heart-wrenching when you think about it. So I would encourage people to look at that. It was a very interesting event. Anyway, one last thing I forgot to mention. We had heard previously a proposal about this tunnel that they were going to put under the Delta. That is so much more controversial than that guy presents. I have some additional information, and the likelihood, the mounting controversy from Anna Ashew on down, if it gets funded, I would be shocked. So even some of the environmental groups are talking about, who thought it might be originally pretty good, are talking against it at this point in the time. So if you want to look at any of the additional information around it, I have it with me.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Let's see, first actually Mayor Stone and I were, and I guess Sue did come a little later, all attended the grand opening of the Boys and Girls Club Tech units. It was real nice. Rent-A-Center, which is an outfit that's nationwide and rents furniture to people in houses, donated a whole lot of Windows 8 computers to Boys and Girls Clubs across the country. So the Pacifica ended up with some, and it was actually pretty nice. And kids were there, and it was kind of cool. Always fun to have the kids around. I also taped a show with Ian Butler, who I see in the audience over there, about my infrastructure speech and that. Also, PCT 26 is offering a little workshop on how you can take and use their calendar, trying to get to a community calendar and add video clips to it and stuff like that for nonprofits. So I would suggest you check their website to see which one is, when the next one is being held. I also had lunch with a couple people from the Chamber of Commerce. parks. And then I also went to my first LAFCO meeting. I'm the representative from LAFCO here for Pacifica. And the LAFCO's local agency formation committee, and they're the ones that like look at different areas of the government, of different governmental entities to see if there can be some streamlining. And it was really interesting is that apparently here in San Mateo County, there's a water district, collects property taxes, but does not sell water to anybody. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. Okay, they use the money for parks and stuff, so that's that.
Councilmember Irvin.
On Friday, I attended the California League of Cities annual conference, and I served as a voting delegate there, and they voted on 2 resolutions. One resolution called on the governor and legislature to work with League of California Cities in providing adequate funding and to prioritize water bonds to assist local government in water conservation, recharge, stormwater, and groundwater recharge. And then the other resolution wants to enter into discussion with League and California Police Chief Association representatives to identify and enact strategies that will ensure the success of public safety realignment from a local municipal law perspective. And this has a lot to do with prison overcrowding and how we're going to deal with that locally as well as statewide. So both of those were voted yes on. In the state. I also went to some really interesting seminars, one of which was a State of the City budget discussion. One thing I thought was really interesting that many of you may or may not know, but there's a $96 billion budget for the state of California, and the reserve is $1 billion. And so much of the discussion is what to do when they go into that $1 billion budget reserve and how to replace those monies. And largely that's what Prop 30 needs to be used for, because it's such a small reserve considering such a significant budget. But it was very interesting. I was happy to have the opportunity to go to the conference. And I also attended Jackie Spear's Democrat breakfast. It was very informative, great speaker, as we all know, and really interesting. You know, Councilmember Nyhart was talking about the issue with the food stamps, and just so amazing how these people are living on $4.50 a day. And she was talking about Congress people who are living on $166 a day when they go away to conferences. And it's just such an interesting situation that, and then the food stamps were cut by $40 billion, and the influence that will have on our homeless and those that are living below poverty levels. It's going to be interesting. But many different topics that she discussed, and it's great to hear her come to Pacifica. So.
Councilmember Degree.
I also attended that. So Congresswoman Spear always gives us a lot of data and things to think about because there's a lot going on in the city. We had the county, Sanchez was having its day. I've gone to that before in the past. It was missed that, and also missed the success seminar up at CSM, but it was well worth going to hear what Congresswoman Spear said. It was nice also to see several Oceana High School students there. I was really very pleased to see young people showing up and getting involved. I also attended Daly City Collaborative, which covers Pacifica and a bunch of other cities. And Ted Lempert spoke about Children Now, so anybody that's interested in any issue regarding children of whatever age level, and that includes students who have disabilities as well, is childrennow.org, and they want to have as many agencies and individuals as possible join them, because that will give them more power in Sacramento. This makes sense. I attended the Half Moon Bay meeting for the redistricting, and I know we'll be talking about that a little later. I also see Barbara Arrieta in the audience, and she's done a magnificent job of being our representative. I was very pleased at the Half Moon Bay meeting. I wasn't able to meet the one the day before at Daly City, but in Half Moon Bay, we were supported by the Mid-Coast people, and what I'm talking about is that I'm assuming you agree that the city of Pacifica should in its entirety be part of the district that covers the coast, which is presently District 3 and would most likely continue to be District 3. And the Mid-Coast people stood up for us, and also the and I'll let Barbara get more into this because she lives it every day, but I was very pleased to be part of what's called the Minority Caucus, and they, after listening to her speak on Tuesday, actually by 4 o'clock Wednesday, had changed their Unity 2 map to include Pacifica. So they understood our issue as wanting and under all the needs of Pacifica definitely being coastal, and the caucus that covers also the minorities in Fair Oaks and East Palo Alto. So they understood and they stood up for us, and I was very pleased. It concerns me a great deal if the entire part of Pacifica is not considered part of the coast just because, no, true. But I'm talking about that. Okay, all right, never mind. She will definitely go into more of that. Coming up, my meetings, I already told you about the Airport Commission. Coming up is the County Heart Board and the Traffic Alliance, Congestion Management. And I'll say we'll give you the dates for more involvement with the district. And I think that would be it. And the Rent-A-Care, I think I actually used that when I was single many years ago to rent furniture.
You probably have the same chair.
The computers were excellent, though. It was very nice of them to do. That's a great asset.
Thank you. All right, so a couple things. Thank you, Councilmember O'Neill, for mentioning the Boys and Girls Club. It was a great event and great community effort because there's a lot of different people that contributed. So thank you. And I wanted to thank Councilmember O'Neill because you've been bringing us more up to speed on what's happening with the Boys and Girls Club. I know you're on the board there, and I hadn't been hearing a lot of updates from them. So thank you very much for keeping us in the loop. And if you mentioned... you mentioned Rancho Day. My kids actually came back from that with a big thing of homemade butter, yeah. So it's always fun. This Thursday, I have a bicycle pedestrian advisory committee meeting, and Pacifica submitted almost $1 million worth of requests for projects. So we're going to be reviewing projects on Thursday, and quite a big potential there. Hopefully our projects score well, and we're able to see some of our infrastructure be funded through that committee. Looking forward to viewing those projects. Attended the Fandango this weekend. Want to congratulate the Chamber of Commerce and the FogFest committee for putting on a great event. It was very well attended, and it's always a great kickoff for the FogFest, so people were definitely having fun there, and I think that's a great tradition to bring back, and it seems like it grows every year, so congratulations to those groups. Also on Saturday, I attended the Skyline Success Summit. That's why I wasn't at the Pacifica Democrats meeting with Jackie Spear, representing Pacifica. And I wanted to congratulate two members that are on the board of that planning committee, Greg Cochran and Cindy Abbott. They're really in the forefront on bringing that whole conference together. I think it was 18 months ago or so they really decided that they wanted to put something like that together, that brought together leaders in the business communities and in government and in schools, and talked about issues that were affecting our county. And it was very valuable. The transportation discussions are, for me, very fascinating, and how transportation around the county really affects our local economy. It affects jobs. It affects just our way of life, especially in a city like ours where very few people are actually working here, and where they're all going throughout the county. So thank you very much to those two members, and thank you to the whole Skyline President's Council for that great event. Lastly, I just got this from the Boys and Girls Club. They're having a barbecue on Saturday, October 5th, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's at the Pacifica Moose Lodge, and tickets are available at theclubs.org, theclubs.org, and that's or Mike O'Neill, who's hawking them around town for a great cause. All right. So that's all for council communications. And next up is oral communications from the public. Have a number of cards here. First one, Thomas Moore, followed by Kathleen Manning, followed by Courtney Conlon.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for just a few moments to introduce myself. My name is Tom Moore, and I'm a candidate for the College Board. I feel a real connection with this city. I was on the original faculty when Oceana opened in 1962. Was the chemistry and math teacher there for a number of years, and then a counselor at Terra Nova for a few years, and after that I became principal of 3 high schools in the Jefferson Union High School District, returned to Oceana as principal. I'm not even sure of the year. It was in the late 70s. Very interesting period of time. Did that for several years, and then eventually, after having been principal of 3 of the high schools, I moved to the San Mateo High School District, where I became the superintendent and served there for about 10 years. After retirement, I was invited to become the president of Kenyatta College, where I served for 6 years. My name will be on the ballot, and I thought it appropriate that I come and introduce myself to the council. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Manning?
Mayor, Council, Kathleen Manning, President of the Pacifica Historical Society. And as we know, Fog Fest is this weekend, as we've heard, but did you know that Sunday is National Museum Day? No. And the Fog Fest Committee knew that, and they're honoring us by making us honorary grand marshals. So that's pretty exciting for us. We're thrilled and thank them for it. So we decided to show off a little bit. And as you know, the Historical Society is working on our museum and event center at the Little Brown Church, and we make a little money and we fix up something, make a little more, fix up something else. It's a slow process, but we do have 2 beautiful museum rooms totally finished. So we thought, well, let's show off. So we got authorization to have a sneak preview. And so we're going to have 2 major exhibits during Fog Fest. And the first one is on the history of surfing in Pacifica. And it's being curated by Steve Brown, who is being also assisted by Bob Twigg, the Pedro Point Surf Club, and the Keating family. The second exhibition is on the building of the tunnel. And Pat Kramer is curating that with help from Mitch Reed and the San Mateo County Museum in Redwood City. They're fabulous exhibits, fabulous. They're memorabilia, artifacts, photos, and video presentations. I guarantee you will be overwhelmed how professional and polished these exhibits are. They're really, the whole thing is just fabulous. So we think that it would be nice if people took a little detour off of Palmetto, 1 block, to the Little Brown Church. Come and see our exhibits. We're only going to be open 2 days, and our goal, of course, is to keep it open permanently. Thank you.
Thank you. Courtney Conlon, followed by Anna Booth, followed by Anita Reese.
Good evening, Mayor Stone and members of City Council. My name is Courtney Conlon, and I am the CEO of the Pacifica Chamber of Commerce. And as Mayor Stone had mentioned during council communications, this past Saturday night, we did have the Pacifica Chamber of Commerce in conjunction with the Fog Fest organizing group. We hosted the Fog Fest Fandango. And for various logistical reasons, we had changed the venue to St. Peter's, who graciously let us use their indoor gymnasium. And as Len had mentioned, our Mayor Stone had mentioned, the Fandango was a great success, enjoyed by over 200 people who dined and danced the night away to the unauthorized Rolling Stones. And we would like to thank our sponsors and everyone who came out to support the chamber. I also want to personally thank Darlene Gonzalez from Stearns Lending, who just chaired the event. And Let's just say her dedicated team of committee members really pulled this one off. And Darlene is an amazing magnet of everything fun. And I have to say, she successfully championed this event, and we can't thank her enough. She also sits on our board. And I also want to thank those of you on council that also came out to support our Fandango. It's just wonderful to see the city and the chamber and the community come out together and play and do good things. So next, regarding the Fog Fest, we are also having a booth in front of Dial Glass and Window Company, and we are going to be promoting the iPacifica app. If you haven't already done so, I encourage you to download it. It is for free, a download. We also have a centralized community calendar now that's very extensive, and you can look up to 3 months out about what's going in and around Pacifica at any given time. And we also will be promoting the free weekend shuttle, as well as our several chamber member businesses, and promoting Pacifica as a tourist destination. And then next, I also want to say that we are hosting our 3rd annual Chamber Bootleggers Golf Tournament. If you want to get a close-up of that, it's going to be Monday, October 7th at the Sharp Park Golf Course. It's a 12 noon shotgun, and we still have more room for foursomes and hole sponsors. If you're interested, go to pacificachamber.com to register. We also, the proceeds support the Chamber and the San Francisco Golf Alliance in promoting Save Sharp Park as a true gem and economic driver in Pacifica. Thank you.
Anna Booth.
Good evening. I'm Anna Booth, and I live in Pacifica. I want to thank you for your presentation on finding a new poet laureate. Ever since Rod Clark, our first poet laureate, died, people have asking, when will we have a new one? And it looks like it's coming soon. I'd like to report on our project to have a place in the library where we can hang plaques to honor Rod and our future poet laureates, as we honor our mayors with pictures in this room. We took the proclamation that you gave to us and framed it. It looks really good. And with the help of one of the librarians at the Sharp Park Library, Sue DeGree, who had the original idea, Sydney Clark, Rod's wife, and I hung it above the stairs as you come up from the parking lot to the library, a place where everyone can see it. There are 2 plaques, a smaller one that says Pacifica Poets Laureate, and then Rod's is beneath that with space for some more. By the way, the proper term is Poets Laureate. You put the S on poets the way you do ladies in waiting, sergeants in arms, editors in chief. And when you come up the stairs the next time to the library, just look up and you'll see Rod's plaque. We have some wonderful poetry events here for free in Pacifica. Free is one of my favorite words, and maybe that's why they call us starving poets. Rod's forum, which he began 25 years ago, is still going at 7:30 on the 3rd Thursday of the month at Florey's on Palmetto. We have a featured reader, we have refreshments, and an open reading for our guests. The next one will be October 17th, and we hope you can join us. You can meet a poet laureate Saturday night at 7:30. Al Young, former poet laureate of the state of California, is going to read. I know Al, and he's a wonderful guy, very nice to meet and talk with. And so be sure to try to go on Saturday night to meet him. I also want to invite you to Pop's Party at the Pier, which we have every year to celebrate our beautiful pier and the money that we have received to repair it. We have almost $2 million in grants to repair the pier, and the engineering department said this is enough to take care of the emergency repairs we need to keep the pier with us. There are going to be repairs to the deck, the railings, and a couple of the piles, and we hope to begin that in October. So we have a lot to celebrate. And we'll also have our Pops t-shirts, barbecue with the Chit Chat Cafe, and music with Ian Butler, who's here with us today, and Fred McCarty. So be sure to mark October 17th, October 13th, the Sunday before your next council meeting, to join us at the party at the pier. I think that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Anita Reese, then Lynn Adams, and Ian Butler.
Hi, Nita Reese with the Pacifica Resource Center, and I'm here just to let you all know that we're having our 3rd annual Rockaway Beach Stroll on Sunday, October 6th from 2 to 5 p.m. And it'll start at the Rockaway Beach Plaza on the corner of Dundee and Rockaway Beach Avenue, and it'll end at the Moonraker Banquet Room at 4 o'clock. Well, it'll start there at 4 o'clock. Tickets are $30 for one and $50 for two, and tickets include a glass of wine from Grape in the Fog, hors d'oeuvres, and a great silent and live auction items. I think you have a flyer, and you should have all gotten an invitation by mail. Tickets are available at the Resource Center, online, at our business hosts at Rockaway Beach, and also available the day of the event. We're also holding a drawing for a fully furnished dollhouse, which was built by Penny Blackwell of Skin Reflections. It's our 3rd dollhouse that we're having a drawing for. And we also have a 3-day, 2-night Tahoe retreat and a Vitamix package. So this year, folks have 3 options to buy tickets for. The drawing tickets are $5 each, or 6 for $25. Those are also available online at the office or at Rock and Rob's at Rockaway Beach. And finally, I wanted to just remind folks that we are gearing up for the holidays. I think we announced last time we're starting to enroll families as of October 1st for Thanksgiving and Adopt a Family. And the deadline for Thanksgiving is October 31st. The deadline for Adopt a Family is November 15th. And we're always looking for adopters. So if anybody wants to help sponsor a family for the holidays, they should contact the Resource Center. Again, either stopping by the office, calling us 650-738-7470, or sending us an email through the website, pacresourcecenter.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian Butler, I'm sorry, Lynn Adams. Getting ahead of myself.
That's all right. No worries. Good afternoon, good evening. I just wanted to report the Coastal Cleanup Day was on Saturday, and we had 1,078 volunteers. And we, with most sites reporting, we have a couple sites that I don't have statistics for yet, but we had collected, it just changed to 1,107 pounds of trash, 307 pounds of recycling, and 1,103 pounds of green waste. And the remarkable thing about that is that it was in the pouring rain. And it rained so hard, and we were not expecting it, because when we left to go to the site at 9, it was relatively clear, overcast, but clear. So people were really, really soaked, and yet they continued to clean up. They didn't turn around and run to the car. They pretty much finished the job that they went for. It was truly, truly remarkable. We didn't have a lot of people come to celebrate afterwards, but we did want to thank, Safeway and both Subways and both Safeways and Columbo's, Papa Murphy's, Mazzetti's for providing food. We had a private donation from a gentleman, Tim Ward. And we also wanted to thank Recology for hauling away all the trash and providing the dumpsters, and also for the Tribune for helping us to get the word out and relay information to people. This is the cleanup where we count. However, it wasn't really possible to count how many cigarette butts and stuff, because the papers got all wet and the pens wouldn't work. But it was a valiant effort by everybody, and it was really, really remarkable. After the Muscle Rock team finished, apparently someone dropped a barrel of hazardous materials, and it caused a big ruckus, and the fire departments had to come put it down, and because the water penetrated it, and it was very hazardous, by the way. I also wanted to invite people to a Young Ocean Stewards Night, Thursday night at the Surf Spot between 6 and 8 p.m. It's an opportunity to meet 3 incredible ocean stewards and scientists in the form of Lincoln Shaw from Whale Wars, Chris Pinsetich from Turtle Island Restoration Network, and David McGuire, our shark expert from Sea Sharks. I also wanted to remind people that voting is still happening to bring $10,000 back to Pacifica, to the Pacifica Beach Coalition. I hate to toot my own horn, but I think it's actually tooting the horn of the Pacifica Beach Coalition and all the volunteers who made this honor even possible. So if anybody can take an opportunity to go to pacificabeachcoalition.org and find the link to vote for Lynn Adams, I would appreciate it, and the Beach Coalition would truly appreciate it. And we'll find out the results of that on October 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Good luck on that.
Thank you.
We've all been voting for you. Ian Butler.
Hi. I want to first give some props to Public Works. You know, we were all on Saturday picking up all the trash in the rain. Ironically, right when we were finished, everything was all trashed again because the rain washed all the trash back out, and especially I went to the Secret Waterfall, and it was just crazy. So the word got out to them, and this morning at early, they sent a crew of 4 people out there. So I went back this afternoon to finish up, and it was all clean. So thank you so much, Public Works. They work hard, and they go down cliffs with ropes to pick up trash, so that's great. But I want to really talk about fireworks right now. I don't know if it's early or late to talk about fireworks, but you know, the Fireworks Task Force, I was an alternate, and they've finished their work. And I think Officer Tassa will have a report at some point, but I want to keep it kind of on the burner a little bit because we need to learn the lesson from last year and apply it to next year. And I think that what the task force came up with, which was a compromise to close part of the beach but allow some of it, you know, this year it was a disaster. There was fireworks on the whole beach. There were actual fires, campfires. But Officer Tassa believes that next year they can do a better job on that. So I think we should wait until next 4th of July to see how well that works before we reevaluate. But I want to think of completely outside of that box entirely, because that task force was really there to only address litter on the beach from fireworks. But there's a lot more issues we need to address, and the main thing is illegal fireworks, which are still a big problem here in Pacifica. And in looking this up, I researched and I found out that some communities in California offer a reward to people that give information that leads to the arrest of somebody for illegal fireworks. Norwalk, California, near LA, they have one. And I talked to them, and they've had it for 10 years, and it's really simple to implement. It doesn't cost anything because we get $1,000 for each person that gets arrested. So we give $500 to the people that turn them in. My feeling is that won't lead to a lot of people getting arrested, but what it could really do is lead to a lot of people being deterred from having illegal fireworks in the first place. Because right now we have a culture of people that invite all their friends over and they blow up stuff for fun to show off to their friends. And if they had to think that everyone that they invited to that party may turn them in for $500, I think that might be a real buzzkill and might be the kind of a thing that might really change that. So I think as a community we need to start really thinking about that. Also, there's the idea of having a social host ordinance applied specifically to fireworks in Pacifica, not that different than the ones we have for underage drinking, and I think that's something else we can consider. I know it seems like a long ways to 4th of July, but we better start thinking right now if we want to try to apply some of those things for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any other cards in the back? Do you want to come speak under oral communications? If you want to speak about item number 9, you can speak then too, but if...
Okay, well...
You'll have time to speak during that time.
I think I'd rather hear some other speakers before I speak about item number 9 at that time. So I'm Barbara Arrieta, and I'm the president of the Pacifica Daly City Democrats, and as such, I thank the council members who support, who are members of our club, and who came to the Jackie Spear event that we threw. Next, we throw events every single month to educate the public because, as Thomas Jefferson said, an informed democracy is a powerful democracy. Next month, we're going to be having a discussion about Measure V. I suppose some people in town have heard about that. And we're on the 3rd Saturday. We're at Sharp Park Golf Course. We're in the rear banquet room from 9:30 to 11:30. On Thursday, or rather, I should say in November, we'll be having State Senator Jerry Hill come and speak to us, a little look under the Capitol dome. But I also support what Ian Butler said about the fireworks. I think that that is very important to get some type of a handle on that. I read somewhere recently in a police report, blotter type of report, maybe on the blog or whatever, that some people had been victimized as early as, I think, last night in Sharp Park. I may be wrong about the night because I've been very busy with going to public hearings night after night, and it gets a lot. But I think that is a very important thing, and we need to address that very intelligently to make sure for the safety of not just people, but for animals. Animals do not understand fireworks. Shell-shocked war veterans, it causes PTSD, lapses. That's not right. It's not all fun. As a matter of fact, it's more destructive than it is fun as far as I'm concerned. But Chapter 2 will come later. Thank you so much.
Yep. Okay, that brings us to item number 8, site plan for the Western Snowy Plover Protection at State Beach. Staff report.
Good evening, council members. The end of January, at the January 28th, 2013 regular city council meeting, council voted to confirm the rules regulations submitted to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on May 31st, 2012 for the Western Snowy Plover Protection Plan at Pacifica State Beach, with the addition of the symbolic fencing as recommended by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and directed staff to move forward with funding, research, and implementation. Staff was asked to bring this back to council for a final look at the plan prior to submission to the Coastal Commission. The application of the Coastal Commission proposes the placement of signage and fencing at the northern portion of the beach as part of a protection plan for the snowy plovers, which was created in consultation with the Department of U.S. Fish and Wildlife local plover experts. It would include the installation of 2 sections of plastic post fencing with vinyl coated cables along the multi-purpose trail running north to south on the east side of the dunes, historical informational signs, along with plover and habitat informational signs will be placed on the posts along this fence. Additionally, picture signs of beach wildlife, including the plovers, created in conjunction with local teacher and her students will be displayed on the fence posts as well. The proposal also includes approximately 928 linear feet of symbolic fencing, which is a cable tie on the west side of the dunes in order to delineate the plover roosting area as identified in consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the local experts. The fencing is movable, and it may be shifted to accommodate the plover roosting area per consultation with the local experts, and as well to ensure public safety during storms or extreme high tides. The fence would be installed annually in mid-August and removed in mid-April to coincide with the plover wintering at PSP. Staff met with members of the Pacifica Shorebird Alliance prior to the summer to discuss the layout of the symbolic fencing. In addition, there will be up to 6 sensitive wildlife protection area signs at key beach access points that will identify the plover area and list beach regulations as related to it. The design also includes 2 Welcome to Pacifica Beach / Snowy Plover informational signs that will also be placed at the Crespi Drive entrance west of the multi-purpose trail and the North Beach parking lot, northern beach access point. Small signs identifying the snowy plover area will be placed approximately every 75 to 100 feet along the symbolic fencing. Plans also include a potential of up to 3 sign poles, 2 snowy plover poles and 1 San Pedro Creek wetlands pole. The plover poles would be placed at the Crespi Drive entrance to the beach, west of the multi-purpose trail, and at the North Beach parking lot, northern beach access. The creek pole would be placed on the multi-purpose beach access trail on the south side of the San Pedro Creek mouth. These wood poles would be about 7 feet tall and 36 inches in diameter. It does say 36 feet there, that's a typo. Diameter width, that's pretty big. With the base of the pole covered in beach rocks, they'll be decorated with facts about plovers, the wetlands, be signs shaped like the various animals, and the poles would have these fiberglass characters on them as well. We were approached by a local teacher and artist with the design for creating and placing these sign poles at the beach. In January, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Coastal Program indicated that they were interested in providing cost-share funding for some of the elements in the plover protection recommendations. And at that time, however, the Coastal Program did not have a budget for projects and were uncertain as to when funding would be available. It's very likely that this project could be considered in their upcoming fiscal year, which begins in October. The plan submitted to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife earlier in the year. The Coastal Program for funding consideration was estimated to be about $32,900. In order to qualify for that program, the city would match this grant with approximately $9,000, making our grant request about $23,875. On August 26, 2013, the city received a letter from the National Audubon Society announcing the award of a grant in the amount of $9,920 to the Sequoia Audubon Society to provide symbolic fencing and educational activities to Pacifica to protect wintering habitat for the western snowy plover at Pacifica State Beach. Pacifica Shorebird Alliance applied for the grant and made the award announcement at the September 9th, 2013 council meeting. Again, the fiscal impact, the plan submitted to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Coastal Program for funding consideration was estimated to be about $32,900. Cost of the city will, depend on the project's final cost, the above-mentioned funding from the Audubon Society and other offsetting funding received from other sources, which at this time are not known. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for staff from council? Councilmember Irvin?
Mike, I would just like to just make sure I can clarify the funding. So currently, our match would have to, if we were funded from the coastal program, if we received a grant from the coastal program, it would be for we would need $23,875, and then the amount we receive from the Audubon Society could be used for the matching segment of that. Is that accurate?
Right. We have not tried to resubmit the funding to the coastal program because basically at that time they told us we don't have anything and we don't know if we'll have anything until October. So the plan would be to I've initiated contact with them just this month just to say, do you know what's going on, just to kind of get the ball rolling and see where things are. And also those were estimates from last year as well. But yes, based on what we submitted to them last year, prior to the $9,000 from the Audubon Society there, we were looking at coming up with $9,000 to offset that $32,000 for the plan.
But so now we have the $9,000, but we still don't know if we're ever going to get if we're going to get funding of the $23,000.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll know sooner than later.
Okay.
But that would be something we go back to them and ask.
So this might be conditional on whether or not we get that.
I don't know that they are concerned where the funding comes from. So if we did get some outside funding, matching it that way, I think that would, that's definitely a possibility.
Okay. Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Just a follow-up to that, can we go for part of this, or is it all or nothing?
This was a very, I want to say, I can't come up with the right word. I want to say it was kind of a loose program. They have a lot of discretionary funds, or they had them last year, and sort of led me to believe that we like the project of protecting plovers. We're very interested in this. So it wasn't like they had a set amount that we had to come to them with. We kind of came with a plan, and they said we need to match it, and so we sort of said, okay, this is what we can match, and what do you think about that? And they were very agreeable to it, but they found out they didn't have the money.
So if they don't have the money, can we use the Audubon money? And probably not if we're trying to use that to go back to get money for the other.
Yeah, I think there's some conditions with the Audubon money. It wasn't given to us. The Shore Alliance were the one that got that. So I believe it was mentioned that, they have sort of a time frame. And actually in the letter they mentioned, obviously they'd like us to get going sooner than later. I would like to go back to the coastal program kind of hard and say, how soon will you know? And their fiscal year starts in a week. So hopefully they'll have a good idea of what type of funding is available.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out that piece of paying for this. And then the other question I had was the question I had last time. Did we ever sort out, and this might be for the city attorney, just making sure. Did we ever sort out liability issues around, somebody's playing Frisbee and...
I'm not sure that, I'm not aware of major liability issues. So I didn't look specifically.
I only asked because we operate it for the state, but it's a state beach, and I just wanted to get that piece clear. That's why I brought it up last time. Sorry. I'm kind of a fuss budget.
Well, to that, I'd say Half Moon Bay has symbolic fencing in their state beach as well.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
Answer the question.
That's still, it's a question. I just wanted to ask.
But I guess, are you asking if the symbolic fencing will increase liability? Or are you just talking about the liability that exists because we're maintaining a state beach?
No, not really that. As much as putting something out there, somebody's playing Frisbee, doesn't see it, falls over it, God forbid. I can think of 1,000 things that can happen, but I just wanted to make sure we're putting it out there so it's on us.
Well, I would say, I think the answer to that is no, I don't think it would increase our liability, because I think that whatever we would put out there would have to be aware that it's not a dangerous condition. We would not put anything out there that is a dangerous condition. That's our obligation. So to a certain extent, I would say that the existing surroundings would create circumstances where people can get hurt, and the construction of symbolic fencing would not increase that risk.
Okay.
Yeah, because we cannot construct a piece of equipment or infrastructure that would be a dangerous condition.
Okay. That's what I wanted to.
But I think, are you saying, Michelle, that if it wasn't in good condition, if it got old, if one of the and there's like a 2-foot screw on one of these things, so I mean, like if somebody took it out and then somebody's dog ran over it, or a kid or something like that.
Yes, and then if we were made aware of the dangerous condition, then we might be exposed to liability. So
Got it.
Right. So there are a few steps that would have to be taken in order for the city to really be concerned with additional liability.
Councilmember Irvin.
I just want to, I know this is Public Works primarily, but are we comfortable with having the staff that could add in, it says 96 extra hours of maintenance and then project management, project design. Is that an issue at all, having the staffing available to take on this project?
I think that's something that you have to consider, that there would be an ongoing cost to it, putting up the fence, taking it down. We have heard from the Shorebird Alliance that, typically a lot of times there's, volunteers do this work. I would assume we need to go in thinking we would do it, and if we get volunteers, then that's less work for us. And there'd have to be staff involved to some extent.
Councilmember Degree.
I wish some of this had been done sooner. We seem to be dragging this out forever. Also, I think we need to look at the component of economic development here too, along with a historical endangered situation where Santa Barbara takes care of it, numerous other places, including Half Moon Bay. I don't know why this is taking such a convoluted issue regarding what the city can do regarding earning money. I don't know, I'm on this 21st century kick where I see people have issues and they put something in the cloud and within 24 hours they're funded. I don't know whether we have any ability. I didn't see that in our communications thing, but we have the paid parking, which was supposed to give us more rangers. Rangers are supposed to be on the beach. Just a little concerned that we're not taking advantage of a lot of hard work, and timing issues are crucial, or we could lose everything. So,
do you have a question for staff before we go to the public?
well, my question is not just to staff, it's to all of us. You know, when do we start looking at those parts? And I think for staff, the liability question is too bad that couldn't have been, I mean, how long is that going to take to figure out? You can't answer that. That's rhetorical, sorry. Never mind.
Do we have any questions for staff before we go to the public? All right, seeing none, open the public comment. We have two cards, Clark Natwick and then Noel Blinko.
Good evening, Mayor Stone and members of the council. I'm Clark Natwick, and I've been a resident of Pacifica for 54 years, and I guess it shows. I discovered the plovers, I think, in the 1990s. They were pointed out to me by ladies from Half Moon Bay that had come up to our beach and seen the plovers in the beach habitat. And from then on, I always looked for the plovers, and when I would see the plovers and there were beach goers, I'd always make a point of showing the beach goers the plovers, and they would get a lot of enjoyment out of that. And I'm very pleased that we've come to the place now where we can look forward to the plovers being protected, and hopefully that they will thrive. I know it's not easy that we got to this point on anybody's part, but it definitely is worth it, and our children and our grandchildren will be very pleased with the work that we've done to protect these plovers. So I thank you all very much.
Thank you. Noel Blinko.
Mayor Stone and City Council. One of the primary things I want to give appreciation to is the staff working with the Shorebird Alliance. Mr. Perez, with an engineer, did go out with us on the beach, and we were looking over the fencing idea, and one of the things was I felt very good about the staff recognizing the critical importance of having a symbolic fencing out west of the dunes for the plovers would have an ideal place for roosting and so forth. And this was an important element with working with staff. The Shorebird Alliance has been it's been 5 years now, and we've been continuously worried about the snowy plovers, and this seems to be such an ideal moment and we're hoping things will move forward with the Shorebird Alliance. We're agreeing with the staff on all the issues. One area on the symbolic fencing, we feel like where this fencing is going to be placed, it will be preserved in such a way that the beach will be shared by all others. Now, the Shorebird Alliance affirms that 50 feet of space between the dunes and the symbolic fencing should serve for plover protection, while at the same time preserving the shared beach for all others. So moving with that, when we say 50 feet, Mr. Perez pointed out to you, there's a real flexibility. The symbolic fencing can easily be picked up within a couple hours and moved, and so when we say we think 50 feet is a good distance, that's not a hard, fast distance, as Mr. Perez has pointed out to you. So that's really important. And I can't underline one factor that seems so important to us after all the years we put in, is for us to move this forward to the Coastal Commission where we can get some real snowy plover protection in. So the staff is at the point of recommending to the City Council for the items for snowy plover protection. Let's move forward. Thank you very much.
Lynn Adams.
I just wanted to say that the Pacific Beach Coalition is very supportive of this proposal, and we're very, very grateful to Clark Natwick and Noel and the Shorebird Alliance for their activism. And even for us, having snowy plover habitat wouldn't really be there if Clark hadn't spent all his Sundays out there pulling ice plant and showing us the way and teaching us and engaging people. For the past several years, we've been bringing visitors from the businesses from around the Bay Area, and we've brought thousands of visitors out. And part of their project, in addition to cleaning up a beach, is restoring habitat there at Lindemar for the snowy plovers. And being able to talk to them about this bird that we are protecting and that we've transformed this beach for has been just really rewarding for them and educational for them. And I'm really happy to see in the plan all of the education that you have planned for this. That is the key that makes people do things that they wouldn't do otherwise. It's the education that really makes it palatable for people. So I applaud it and congratulate you. Thank you.
Okay, that's the final card on this, and so I'll bring it back to council. Anyone like to begin with some comments? Councilmember O'Neill?
Mike, I just had a quick question. How tall is the fence?
About 3.5 feet high. 3 to 3.5, about there. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it says 36 on the plan.
3.5 feet.
Depends how we drive it into the. It gets driven into the.
Okay. No, I was just curious.
Councilmember Degree, comments?
Yeah, just looking at the drawings that the teacher and the artist, who is a teacher of children, it's something to see. And then all the other signs and the fence and all, I can see the educational value where it would get people's attention, and also the children's work. We already know that those signs by children at the south end of Lindemar Beach have been there for a long time. But to have children involved like this in something with nature, and like I say, I think Lynn showed it too, there's an economic value. It just warms people's hearts, and it's very well done. What we're looking here on the screen, I guess, I don't know if you can see it, it's extremely well done, very educational. You want to stop and read and learn. Also, thanks to the scout troop that works with the teachers as well as with the Shoreboard and our local folks working for the snowy plovers. So I would be ready to make a motion.
Just a couple more comments here. Councilmember Irvin?
I just want to really thank all the people involved. I know what a long process this has been with the Shorebird Alliance and even the Pacifica Beach Coalition and the work they've done, removing non-native species for the benefit of the snowy plover. It's really heartwarming to see the work that's being done for these
threatened species, and I think it is very, very important. And my questions are only just to ensure that, you know, we are going about this in a responsible way. You know, unfortunately, we're facing some really difficult financial situations, and every year we have to look at the budget and think about, do we have to cut the resource center? Do we have to cut the library? Do we have to cut PCT? Do we have to cut all these other things? And so adding more things onto it, it just concerns me. And that's what I just want to make sure of. I would like to see that we have the funding for this project. It's just, you know, if it's another $23,000 that we are paying, we don't have that money to pay right now. It's not in our budget. So it's something I think we just are in the situation where we have to look at things like that. We have to ask those questions. But you know, I absolutely think it's imperative that, you know, we move forward and we ask for the approval of the California Coastal Commission. And, you know, when the funding comes in, when we have assigned funding for this, then we can surely go ahead and complete this much needed project. But my concern is just additional funding.
Can I ask Director Perez, I know in our last conversation, it's been a number of months now since this last was at council, but just going off memory, it seemed like a lot of the conversation was about the funding was that, you know, we would go forward in the kind of paperwork process or permitting process, if you will, but that we would wait until there was funding secured. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I don't think that we don't have any identified funding to pay for this. So we need to seek out outside funding for this, unless council chooses to allocate that in the budget. I don't think we have anything there.
Right.
You know, there's nothing to kind of move around, which is why we want to look to the outside agencies. And it is exciting when there's an outside agency that's interested in our project, but we need them to have some funding. So we're hoping that, you know, that will happen. But we don't have, we need to go forward with the paper process. So to answer your question, yes, we need to move forward with the paper process, and we don't know how long that will take with the Coastal Commission. And once we're done with that, you know, hopefully we'll have some good news on funding.
Sure. And I think just to speak to that point, I'm glad Councilmember Irvin brought it up about the funding and the budget and how tight the budget is. And every year we're kind of looking at just trying to balance. And over the last 2 years, we've been able to do that. And the city historically has not balanced their budget. I think it's the first time, just 2 years ago, is the first time we balanced a budget in over 10 years. And that's, our funding is continuing to be on a thin line there. So with this project, I think what's most concerning to me is the maintenance and the staff time. With this project, I think I applaud all the work that's gone into it. I think there is an environmental resource there that we need to protect. It's just the thing on this project is, if you're looking at it as the purple line for me, or the magenta line on it, is the actual stuff on the beach, the movable stuff, because movable to me equals man hours, and I think it's in the budget, just as is operation, that there's an amount there in this project for that, and that's not including if it has to be taken down because of weather, or if it's kicked over by people that are on the beach in the evening, or what have you. And I don't think, I think it's a very good offer that volunteers do it, but I think that's a difficult thing to have done with volunteers, especially because they could be done early in the morning or what have you. And those things tend to be hard to keep up, like we're seeing with the dog park. So when we're looking at this diagram, to me, the green lines of fencing that are between the coastal trail and the bluffs make perfect sense. And the amount of maintenance on those is going to be minimal because they're not moving. But the fence that's actually on the beach, the symbolic fencing on the beach, to me, is going to be a maintenance, or has the potential to be a maintenance nightmare. I don't know how much, if people are going to be kicking it over all the time, it could be worse, or people could potentially get hurt. But that's an afterthought to just these budgets that we've had to go through over the last few years. and having to spend, maybe tens of thousands of dollars on maintenance costs every year, I think we need to be very conscious of that and be as fiscally mindful as possible. The protections that I would be happy to support are, of course, the green line fencing between the dunes and the path, and all the signage. I do think that the education is the key piece to this. And of course, there's also in this plan directing people away from that middle region of Lindemar Beach or kind of north of Crespi region. So that's also going to direct people away. And of course, the other piece that's not part of this plan, but something else that we're also doing is the rangers as well, which are going to help with off-leash dogs, which is a huge disruptor of the plover. So what I would propose is that we go ahead with the plan minus the symbolic fencing on the beach, evaluate what the impact is on that. Not permanently, that's it. Evaluate what the impact is on that, on the plover, and see where that is in 6 months or so after, and see if we need to readdress. That is what I would propose. Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I'm looking for something. I kind of have to agree here with Councilwoman Degree. We've been visiting this project a bunch. On the other hand, timing and money, and I was trying to figure this out in terms of what you have listed out. The 9,028, Mr. Perez, that's covered by the Audubon? Because you have it. So those are the things that are covered.
The Audubon is not in that budget that you're looking at. So that's just separate in the letter. That's separate from the budget. The budget that was put together at the end of last year, actually, when we submitted to the coastal program. So the 9,000 that the Audubon Society is giving is new.
Okay, so it's on top of. It could be used for any piece of this.
Sure.
Okay. Because I was going to volunteer to raise the money for the kiosk right now.
Well, I believe also that they had some specific things in.
The signage, I'm wanting to get started.
There is actually a gentleman, I don't know for sure because I haven't met him, but someone in the Shorebird Alliance has told me that they have a donation of the actual cable that is the symbolic fencing. So it's actually, that part is being donated. I actually have a sample of it in my office.
So if we can put together the pieces of this. In other words, I guess what I'm asking is, if you go ahead and get approval and we don't have the money, we can put it together in pieces as we get the money.
I would think that would be okay. One of the reasons why you may or may not have noticed, there's a lot of signage on the plan, and we talked about that and thought about it a lot, and the best case scenario was to ask for more than instead of asking for something, and then,
at least we can
you know
get
what I mean?
some up.
If we ask for, 50 signs made by kids, we're actually asking for one on every post. If we don't have one on every post, it's okay because we have permission to have them on every post. If we only ask for, 5 of them, we can't do 6.
So if we go ahead, going back to my question.
Yes.
And we ask for the whole thing, and we have approval on the whole thing, but we only do as we have money and can assure, and I defer here to being early in the parking process. So we don't actually know how much money we're making, whether it's going to cover this, all of those things. But if we could get Coastal Commission approval and then move forward as we have the money for it, that's a reasonable alternative to this. Is that something that would work? I'm looking to you or our substitute teacher who never got introduced.
All right.
That's okay.
I think that, but the Sequoia Audubon Society is providing symbolic fencing and educational activities. That's a condition of, that's what they're donating their $9,000 towards. The coastal program that I mentioned earlier, they were interested in our program, if you remember, maybe you don't, but back in January, the staff report, they were interested in providing funding if we put in symbolic fencing. They were not that interested in providing any funding if we did not.
So, again, one more time, because the question is, if we approve this and we go ahead and find the pieces of the money to put together, is that okay? Even if we don't have, I understand what you're saying about some of the sources of the money, but I'm trying to figure out a way to do this in a reasonable way. And I understand the issues that others have brought up, because we don't really know how much money we're making off of parking yet. We don't have a real good handle on that. That's the bottom line. So is it going to cover the Rangers? Is it going to cover more? We don't know yet. So in all good prudence, I want to get started, but I want to make sure we're covering our bases as we go.
I think that if we don't have the funding, we can't put it in, right? And if we have funding for parts of it, we can do that. With as I mentioned, if a funding comes in or we have existing funding that's for a certain piece of the project, then we would not be able to use that funding for something else. If they're giving us $9,000, they say, for a certain aspect, then we'll need to spend it on that.
Can I ask you, Mike, if the application sent in like this, right? Would it be likely that the permits would allow for that piecemeal approach, if that was our funding limitation?
I don't think that, without getting feedback from the Coastal Commission yet, I don't think that's how it works. I think that if they approved our project, they weren't necessarily approving the implementation of it. Although,
yeah, I think that what the council is trying to find out is, if we get Coastal Commission approval for this plan, is it likely that there are going to be restrictions on constructing the project in pieces as opposed to at once? I do not believe that there are likely to be restrictions imposed on our ability to piecemeal the project. That's unusual. But certainly the council can move forward and approve this project with that condition on it. Approve this submittal to the Coastal Commission so long as, any approval does not require us to construct the whole project in one fell swoop. But I believe, and I think Director Perez has confirmed that it's unlikely that the Coastal Commission, or I'm not aware of the Coastal Commission imposing those kinds of conditions on project approvals.
Our city manager.
Sure.
I'd like me to say a couple things here. It sounds like what you're looking at doing here is you're going to be using this approval here to go forward and try and apply for some funding to make it happen, to put the barrier in. We've got different levels of protection here. If you don't get the funding for that, then I suspect that won't happen, obviously, or we'll be back to ask you for the funding for that, or you'll go forward with another agency and see if they can provide that funding. So I think all Director Perez is looking for today is council approval on this plan, this program, and then going forward, he'll do what he can to get the funds. If we can't, we'll be back to ask you for funding in some other manner. Does that capture it, Director?
Makes sense to me.
yes.
Is that correct?
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember O'Neill.
A question is, if the Coastal Commission gives approval, will they put some time frame on it that it has to be done within 6 months, has to be done within 1 year and completed? within 1 year? Has that ever happened, in your knowledge?
I think that they could put time restrictions on it. But, you know, if there are conditions that we can't fulfill, like a time restriction, then we simply would not follow through with the permit. We're not forced to construct the project simply because we've gotten an approval.
Okay, so if they give us a year timeline and we're unable to do this, then
it means that we'd have to submit another application.
and start over then.
Right, exactly, we'd start over again.
Okay, and then if I remember correctly, the snowy plover's down at the beach in the winter, but like June, July, and August, the snowy plover's not there, correct?
Correct, yeah. Usually mid-August to about mid-April.
Now, I haven't seen the symbolic fencing and stuff like that, but this is like a totally off-the-wall thing. Is we were talking about the fireworks and sorting off a separate area for fireworks. Could this fence be used in July for the fireworks and then snowy plover during the winter? You know, because then, you know, because I believe we were talking to what's in TNT and Phantom about they were going to maybe help with some of the costs of getting that fencing for the July. Is this possible to be used? Could you use it, or is it more dangerous?
If it was on the beach, I guess you could use it. You might have some concerns about seeing it at night or, you know, that type of thing, but I don't, you know, I would say in theory, yes, you could use it for something like that.
So you think, would it be an appropriate use for that or inappropriate? I haven't seen the fence.
I wouldn't know either way. It depends what kind of, I'm assuming if they put a fence out there, they'd use like kind of the snow fence, you know, something like that for something like this, which we have snow fence, and we'll put it around various things.
I was just trying to think of a funding source.
It's possible.
Okay.
Councilmember Irvin?
Oh, I got my answer.
Okay. Councilmember DeGree?
Yeah, my question was, the way it's stated here, authorization for application to be submitted to the Coastal Commission for the Western Snowy Plover Protection signage and fencing plan at the Pacifica State Beach. Just the way it's worded there, I think that's pretty generic. It's either yes, you get signage, or no, you don't get signage.
Okay. And I think I'm hearing a lot of the questions and all that. I mean, like I said, my biggest concern is that we are financially prudent here. So if we're able to move forward on this, and still that is going to come back to us for funding and for in trying to see other forms of funding and thus approving those, then I'll be supportive of it this evening. But I would like it to be clarified, maybe in our permit, that all the construction doesn't have to be done at once, if that's possible. And I'd be happy to support this evening.
Well, then you should make your motion to reflect that.
Okay.
I'll make it.
Okay.
You want it to be all, it must, oh no.
No, just that it doesn't, that our hands aren't tied in implementation of this if the finances aren't there and we have some money for something but something doesn't. I think everyone is anxious to, and like Councilmember DeGree said, to move the process along. And if one part is able but the other isn't, I mean, you could be waiting another funding cycle for a grant resource or something like that. And not in the motion, but just so everyone knows that the maintenance funding included, well, I'll definitely bring up the maintenance funding in the next go around on this, because I think we should consider the maintenance as well, not just the hardware on this one. So if I'd entertain a motion.
Well, that's what we're doing.
You want to do that, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I want to move authorization for application to be submitted to the Coastal Commission for the Western Snowy Plover Protection signage and fencing plan at the Pacifica State Beach, pending, well, the fact that we will continue to find funding and can build this in as the pieces come available in terms of funding. Is that clear enough for, thanks. Okay.
Is that clear enough for you?
I have a question.
Check the minutes.
Or
Have to second first.
provided the approval does not hamper the city's ability to construct the project in a piecemeal fashion.
I so amend the motion to reflect what she said.
Taping this, right?
We have a second. And
We need a second.
do you want a second?
Yeah.
You want a second for discussion, Sue?
No, attorney just clarified that, thank you.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second? Okay, please vote. And that passes 5-0.
Sorry. Sometimes it's hard to watch sausage.
As long as it tastes good at the end. Next up, item number 9, San Mateo County supervisoral excuse me.
It's okay.
District boundaries. We have a staff report.
Honorable Mayor, council
sorry.
members, in total, the District Lines Advisory Committee developed 18 potential supervisorial maps within the county and are now down to 3. All 3 of the maps keep Pacifica whole by placing our entire city in the same supervisorial district, orienting south with other coastal communities of which we share environmental, economic, and social issues, making Pacifica a part of the same regional community. The District Lines Advisory Committee has requested input from the City of Pacifica, and a letter has been drafted for the mayor's signature. Barbara Arrieta is here to offer additional information and answer questions, so I would invite her up at this time.
You want us to take a break, Sue? Are you okay if we proceed? Yeah. Okay. Sure. So I just asked, you asked her to come up?
I just did.
Oh, Barbara, we might have some questions for you. Come on up. I did want to just give a little context as well. I asked for this to be on the agenda when this came to my attention a few weeks back. What?
It's okay.
A few weeks back, and thought it was important that we looked at the maps. And at that point, there was, you can tell us the number, but it had to have been dozens of maps that have been
21.
submitted. 21. So
To start.
submitted, and most of the maps at that point had Pacifica either the north end in the Fairmont area going into the supervisor district that Daly City is in. There's another map that had Pacifica cut off at Sharp Park going into the district to the north, and then even maps had all of Pacifica going into the district in the north. Since then, like our city clerk mentioned, that there are 3 maps that the committee is working on, and all of which have Pacifica going into District 3, our existing district, which represents the coast side all the way down to Pescadero and the county border on the south, and then going over on the other side of the hill. So this is an intention to get our voice out there to the process, and they meet tomorrow. And we want to hear more about everything. Please add.
I received 5 maps here tonight through my email. So we're going to have a very large discussion tomorrow night. And by the way, I'm Barbara Arrieta, for the record, a member of the San Mateo County Supervisory District Lines Advisory Committee. And for the past several months, we have been conducting public hearings throughout the county. And we have taken much testimony. Some people have been very organized, and some such as the coast side, have not shown that much organization until as of late. But better late than never. And it's very, very important. I've had to really get into the art of negotiation and consensus. We've had 21 maps. I was able to get 18 of those maps that were decimating Pacifica put into a temporary abeyance. Any one of those can be brought back tomorrow night. All of them could be brought back tomorrow night, in addition to the 3 that I mentioned to the Mayor Stone that we're looking at. But now, what has occurred is, I think good. I just received 5 new maps. The Community Unity Map 4 is a very good one. I had told Mayor Stone that I wanted him to look at Community Unity 3. We have one thing here in San Mateo County. What we have is minorities. Almost half of this county is now minority of one race or another. And what occurred with the creation of the San Mateo County Supervisory District Lines Advisory Committee was a lawsuit to the county from the minorities, Asian Law Caucus, and other advocacy law groups representing minorities. They prevailed, and it was incumbent upon the supervisors to take one more look. That's why we're doing what we're doing. Normally, this isn't done 2 years after a major one has been done, but because of that, it has been done. So we have attorneys at every one of our meetings, and we have lots and lots of educated people who want a voice, who have a minority voice, but not a cohesive majority of the citizens' voting age population in certain areas. So we need to grapple with that. We need to try to balance out all of these things. But one of the most important things for us is the coast. And to divide up the coast, who really do have, in my opinion, a minority voice of their own in many of the situations that occur over on the other side of the hill, especially with transportation and other things. I know when I speak on transportation, I chair the Transportation Authority Citizens Advisory Board. And I would say that we need that cohesiveness. We didn't have it in the beginning, but fortunately, we've got the South Coast supporting us, the Mid Coast supporting us, and now tonight with your letter, well, of course, I was going forth with or without, because from what I know from living in this area for 46 years, in Pacifica for 46 years, we need to be united because that's where our strength comes from. We don't need to have our voice diluted. So I would ask that all of those people who might be listening tonight and who really don't know too much about this to go to the San Mateo County website, look up the District Lines Advisory Committee section. And even if you cannot draw a map because the deadline for map submission is passed, that happened Friday, September 20th, you can still submit comments about how you feel, keeping Pacifica whole, keeping it with the rest of the communities on the coast, and keeping all of those communities in District 3, which I hear is the prevalent, I'm only parroting what the public is telling me. So, they can send their letters to districtlines@smcgov.org. Again, districtlines@smcgov.org. And we have, as I said, we have a meeting tomorrow night, College of San Mateo, the Coral Room, Building 2, Room 110. College of San Mateo, Coral Room, Building 2, Room 110, 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. That will be the final public hearing of the District Lines Advisory Committee. What comes out of that tomorrow night, really, none of us know. We could create our own map in spite of all of these maps. Right now, with the 5 I received this evening, I've got 26 maps to look at between now and tomorrow, again, so that I can understand the arguments that will come. But the point is that what we decide tomorrow, whether we're going to send forward one map or a multiplicity of maps for the purview of the Board of Supervisors, remains to be seen. Normally, we would send one, but who knows? It's been an ever-moving event. October 8th, the Board of Supervisors meeting will be the final arena for the decision of how the supervisorial districts in San Mateo County will turn out. It may be that the supervisors choose not to do much at all, but perhaps do precinct cleanup. Or it may be that there'll be a quantum change to reflect what the minorities are asking for, so that they feel that they have an opportunity to have a stronger voice so that they can do what they want and need. But I'll have to say that it's very, very important for people to weigh in, to support us on the coast, to support Pacifica as a whole. And any questions, Mayor?
I don't see any from council, but Barbara, I just wanted to say on behalf of the council, thank you for serving and representing Pacifica. I'm glad we've been able to have conversations. I'm glad you're out there taking the pulse of the community. I've also kind of heard exactly the same thing, that most people would think that we're more a community of interest, I think is the term that they use, or associated. Our issues and challenges and needs are much more like the rest of the coast side and not like Daly City, which we, even though we border, have a lot less in common with. So I thank you for all that you're doing on the committee.
Thank you.
And go get them tomorrow.
I got them 2 weeks ago.
I know you have. So we have a couple of cards here for public comment, and I thank you very much.
Certainly. Thank
do you have a question, Councilmember DeGree?
Isn't it my understanding that tomorrow as many people as it should show up?
Especially, I think so, because I know that there's an organized effort on some groups' parts to go in there and to lobby, and there are still some groups who would rip us up. But from what I'm seeing, the Community Unity Map 4, whose support and rewriting of everything to accede to my wishes 2 weeks ago really was a wonderful thing. So I think that's a good one to look at. Of course, the precinct map cleanup is a good one to look at. Nakamura 1G appears to be good. South San Francisco has introduced one that may be okay. I need to look at it clearly tonight, but they certainly were one of the ones that wanted to slice us up in half. And one of their maps does.
Wow.
And so if we had a choice between the minority, community unity minority approach, I would go with number 4. At this point, she said guardedly, because everything is changing all the time. But South San Francisco, one of South San Francisco maps continues to splice us in half, and I cannot, nor I will not support any map that does that to us, period.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so much.
Any other question?
Yeah. Regarding that unity group, they've stayed pretty committed to us being coast, right?
Yeah, well, they started out slicing us up from the north part.
Right, but I mean more recently.
Yeah, more recently, 2 weeks ago tonight, I actually drew a line in the sand and surprised everybody and said, even though we were supposed to wait for these things to happen, I felt that the conversation needed to get started, and it had to get started fast, because I wasn't seeing anybody from the coast, and I wasn't seeing anyone from Pacifica. The only person that ever showed up from Pacifica was Eric Rushames. And when I knew the usual cast of attendees and what their dialogue was and would be, and so at that point I thought, okay, fine, we need to make sure that I will not and I cannot support anything that dilutes our voice here on this coast as a representative from District 3. You put me there, you want to hear, you're going to hear.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Okay.
A couple cards here from the public.
No, but everyone's okay now?
No more questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
First is Eric Rushames, followed by Kathy Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to thank Barbara and recognize the work that she's done. She's really in hostile territory, and she's done a great job for protecting Pacifica's interest, and we really owe her a debt of gratitude for that. I was at the meeting where she drew the line in the sand, and it was quite entertaining to watch the look on people's faces when she did that. I appreciate, as you all do, serving in public office in Pacifica, that we're very attentive to the issues in Pacifica, but we've also all learned to recognize that power in this county is on the other side of the hill. And we've become more and more active in different ways to tap into that, because really what we're talking about is money. and how important it is that we stay in the coast, in the district as a community that's not cut up. And I guarantee, from my experience at the meeting and reading the minutes and keeping track of it, every other council, every other political body is advocating for their community as they perceive the best interest, which is what they certainly should do. The meeting I was at, Daly City Council members marched up and presented one after another their unanimous resolution to support keeping Daly City whole. Now, their map incidentally cut Pacifica in half. So, you know, that's in their best interest, perhaps is not our best interest. So I think it's critical that we support in every which way keeping Pacifica whole, keeping us on the coast side together. I also think it's really critical that we stay with us till the end, till October 8th, because even though it's looking better now than it did before, you know, it ain't over till it's over, and that means October 8th when the board votes, because who knows what rabbits will get pulled out of hats between now and then, and who's going to weigh in politically on this process. So I think it's real important that people show up tomorrow night, but also follow through and be in Redwood City on the 8th, and make sure that we present a unified face to the Board of Supervisors, not just at the committee, but also to the board on how critically important it is that Pacifica stay intact and on the coast. And I know you've been supporting it, and I just urge you to continue to do that, and the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Johnson?
I'm Kathy Johnson. I live in Fairmont, and I recently found out about this issue. And I'm concerned in regards to the proposal to alter San Mateo County electrical boundaries. A supervisory district that represents only coastal communities is a realistic approach to creating the proposed evolving districts. I believe we would have a supervisor that represents Daly City if we accepted that map 90% of the time, because that's where his support comes from. I think drawing the boundaries of district is a way to give one party an unfair advantage. Councilmember Degree mentioned Half Moon Bay's take on this. Daly City had their city council meeting, and their mayor, along with a large group of speakers, also voiced their opinions and do not want to see the San Mateo electoral boundaries changed. I just hope that the city of Pacifica has the support of the city council, and I know that now that I've heard about it, I also am getting involved and passing the word around. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We don't have many lights, so I'll just make a quick comment. Thank you.
Put it on like 3 times.
I just want to thank the speakers and thank Barbara again. And I think one thing that was that I want to add to the comments is that now that there's the district elections, I think we've never seen our supervisor so much. You know, I think our supervisor does a great job and everything, but Pacifica is one of the largest cities now. It is the largest city in our district, and for that, we get a lot of representation, and that's important, and it's important to keep that. And I think that's kind of the other side of it, as well, is that having that influence at the county is very, very important. So, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, finally. Actually, being at the meetings, thank you, Barbara, for being there. But this has been something that's been strongly discussed in a number of venues and discussed with our supervisors. Sitting as the vice chair of the Council of Cities and also the vice chair of CCAG right now, the City and County Association of Governments, we realize, the coastal communities, how important it is that we hang together, because we do have very, very different issues than what happens over the hill. We all try to work together as a county, but we really would like those issues represented through one, and we have more powerful voting mechanisms through one supervisor. Some people have tried to say that 2 supervisors, you'd have 2 to represent you. Well, you have 2 with less votes. So the bottom line is who gets paid attention to. And since several people have mentioned some of the lobbying that has gone on, yeah, we lost out a little bit in Daly City, but we've gained great ground with South City. So there's a number of jockeying for positions that have gone on among council members at the various meetings. And I feel like Pacifica is in a very different place than it has been, that we have some real clout and some feelings of respect and a different look at how we're bringing home grants and our name in terms of where we're at on various applications and points and all of those things. So we've been doing pretty well, and I think we're going to continue to do very well. But we have to play fairly, and we have to play with others. And in doing that, it was interesting I was watching this and feeling like the feedback I was getting was fairly along the paths of what you're talking about, when all of a sudden Supervisor Horsley asked me, well, what did I think about having the town in half? I later found out that he was really referring to the Daly City proposal, but in fact, I called Councilmember Stone, or Mayor Stone, and was quite upset that evening, if you recall. So I'm glad to see that we've moved forward. I'm glad to see, and I would encourage more people to come out, and I would encourage this letter, and I would encourage each of us to make a statement as individual council members as well, to make sure that each of the Board of Supervisors, because they're the final vote, that's the bottom line, that they understand that we want to stay together. So I support the letter. I support that too.
Councilmember O'Neill?
I support the letter. I have no problem with it. I would just maybe change one verbiage to wait to keeping all of Pacifica within the existing District 3, because sometimes they change the numbers like they did for the state assembly and stuff. That's the only thing I would suggest.
That's an interesting point.
Well, Leyland E's all of a sudden senator from Mono Lake, you know. And so is it, I don't know this procedure, but is it all right for a council person to use city letterhead to send something like this letter out?
Well, so long as it's being authorized by the council, that's why it's on the agenda.
Michelle, we can't hear you.
I just wanted to ask, that's all.
It's on the part.
Yes. That's why it's on the agenda, so it can be authorized by the council, and once it's authorized by the full council, then...
We can individually send a letter?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Degree?
I'm not sure, did you just say each person could individually send a letter and sign it? Is that what you just said?
No,
I thought that's what is that what you were asking?
We're doing it as a group.
The agenda item is to authorize the mayor on behalf of the council to send that letter.
Right, but Marianne had made the comment, maybe each of us individually as a council person should send a letter to the Board of Supervisors. Okay,
That's not
I
what I said.
misunderstood you.
I said for you to contact contact the supervisors themselves. I didn't say a letter.
But I think his question is, can he use city letterhead?
Right. That's a good question.
Well, if the council authorizes that action, that would be fine. My one concern is that wasn't on the agenda for tonight. The authorization for tonight is to authorize the mayor on behalf of the council to send the letter.
Councilmember Irvin?
Just want to say that I fully support the letter, and I also very much appreciate the speakers tonight, Barbara Arrieta in particular, all your hard work that you've done in regards to this this district realignment, and I will do whatever I can. I appreciate the encouragement to be involved in these meetings and letting us know when these meetings are occurring. That's great. So I'll be there and do what I can to support it.
Councilmember Degree?
Right, I'm a nervous Nellie, and I would encourage everybody that could be there to be there if you have to prop yourself up, and also for those that can't, to just send an email right away supporting the coast stays the coast. So regarding the question about existing District 3, I don't know if that would, I'm wondering if District 3 could be a new configuration than what exists, but we would be in it. So I'm just a little concerned about using the word existing for that sort of reason. I don't know, maybe Barbara can explain that. And I read the letter a couple times. It's looking for how we could make it stronger, but it looks pretty strong.
You guys must want me to run to City Council tomorrow and have to sign this letter, but or to City Hall. But whatever the council feels okay with. I mean, I think the meaning behind the letter is what's most important, and that the supervisors understand where we want to be. I would be shocked if this group of supervisors said, "Oh, hey, look, we did what you want. You're in 3," and then just wear some weird configuration. But if the council feels that that's appropriate, that's fine with me either way. Mayor Pro Tem.
I just move that we have the mayor send this letter with the addition of existing District 3.
We have a second, Mayor or Councilmember Irvin.
I second.
All right, let's vote. Existing, it is 5-0. That passes. All right, number 10, adoption of the City of Pacifica Economic Development Plan. The proposed action on this plan is acceptance of the plan with a direction to staff it be considered during future land use decisions.
Yes, Your Honor, members of council, what you have before you tonight is close enough? How's that? Testing, 1, 2, 3.
That's
How's
better.
that? Okay, good. What you have before you tonight is the final draft of the Economic Development Plan. It's designed to offer guidance to the community towards future development. Stephen Wallstrom, principal author of the plan, is here this evening. He's available to answer questions. He does have a presentation he could make. It's about a 15 or 20-minute presentation to go through the recommendations of the plan very briefly. But I want to stress, it was recommended to you by the Economic Development Committee. It is being recommended to you this evening. It's not fait accompli, and it's being recommended for you to accept, not to adopt or act on any way, just to accept their work. So with that, I'll turn it back over to our consultant here and ask the council if you would like the full presentation or just a brief overview and some questions. What is your preference this evening?
I'd love to hear from the council what your preferences are. I am a liaison, and so is Mayor Pro Tem. But I'd love to hear from the council and the public as well. So either way is fine with me. But it would be nice to hear from the consultant, in my view. Councilmember Degree, you have an opinion?
Yeah, I'm all for listening to the consultant because people haven't necessarily seen it, although it's been on the website for looking at. But this is a very serious matter, and I would like to see much more public involvement in it. So my question is, I just read it. So where's the agenda? I just had it in my hand. The way the agenda has it, hold on. Acceptance of the plan with a direction to staff that it be considered during future land use decisions. I would like a little bit more direction on that, because I really think that we need to flesh it out and talk about it more. I mean, I realize you two have been able to be there at the table, but most of us have not. And it's, as somebody said, possibly face-changing for Pacifica. And granted, I understand that we're not voting to put anything into practice.
That's right.
But I think that leaving it to, quote, be considered during future land use decisions isn't strong enough for council involvement. I would just like to see a little bit more public and council involvement.
What would you propose, Councilmember Degree? Because we have options. Of course, we could listen to the report tonight. We could do a study session.
The
we
consultant
could.
is here. I think listening to the consultant is good. It's on TV. It'll be repeated. I think that would be very good. And then for discussion and further public input, I think we as a council group needs to be more in it. There's some very significant issues in there that may be more controversial.
Councilmember O'Neill?
To answer the initial question, I would like to see the 15-minute video. Okay, that was the question too.
No, he asked me what I would like to see, and I gave him my whole menu.
Good. Well, I think we'll go ahead. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, and I
And you wanna
wanted to
comment?
be able
Go
to
ahead.
ask questions of the
Great.
consultant.
Excellent. Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Wallstrom?
Good evening.
Good evening. It's nice to be here. And
Make sure to speak into the mic when you're, because just so the people at home can hear you as well.
sure. It's nice to be here and have this opportunity to make sure that the community understands what's in this plan and how it's the first step in an economic development effort in the community. We have about 15, 16 slides. Susan Barnes is my partner on this project. She's done a lot of the work and interviewed many people in the community. So she's going to start it, and I'm going to finish it, and then we're both available for comments and questions.
Thank you.
Just to start it off, we wanted to let you know that we had reached out, next slide, please. We have reached out to over 26 community stakeholders. These included city staff, but also local businesses, the Workforce Investment Board, the San Mateo County Convention Visitors Bureau, the Chamber of Commerce, local businesses, a member of the Planning Commission, all 5 council members, and then we went monthly to the Economic Development Committee and spoke with each of those members and then spoke collectively with the group on a monthly basis. We also spoke with some property owners about a set group of questions that we asked to get consistent kinds of information. We also did, we also did an online business survey, which yielded 41 responses, and that was basically to drill down on some workforce issues that local businesses may have. And we also did an analysis of local economic development assets and constraints, which you'll see as a part of the plan. Next slide, thank you. The data analysis sources included, I know it's getting late, so I won't spend a lot of time on these, but the City of Pacifica, the Chamber of Commerce, relevant studies. We looked at sales tax information, business license tax information, and we gleaned a lot of information from all of this. We also used California Employment Development Department data, the travel impacts by county data, business patterns, census data, and USA.com. It's important for us to share with you the outcomes of the interviews because I think that these are what really sort of give the flavor to the whole conversation that we had about economic development. And it's important to make the distinction people told us between the connection between revenue sources and a city's capacity to deliver public services. That is, a lot of people think that their property tax really pays for all the services they get. If they get a new library, something like that, that's paid for by property taxes. And the reality is, you know, economic development is that driver through sales tax, property tax, transient occupancy tax, and reassessment of properties that really sort of pays for those things that really make our quality of life good. People also told us that the city should reflect the importance of economic development in the allocation of city resources and staff, and that perhaps that wasn't happening just yet. That it was important to leverage the city's recreation and environmental assets. People told us again and again and again the reason that they were here, either with their business or why they lived here, was because of the beautiful things that surrounded them in the local landscape. That key opportunity sites include the quarry, the Kelson property, and the Shamrock Ranch, and that the completion of the Beach Boulevard EIR project is a very positive step. One really underlying thing that came up again and again and again was that successful economic development will require public-private partnerships between the city, property owners, local resource providers, and local businesses. In addition, they told us that it was important to identify ways to leverage local resources, including finding additional ways to work with the Chamber of Commerce and other local organizations. Tourism is something that came up a lot because it's the, a lot of the bread and butter of Pacifica, and a lot of the revenues that are important come from things like TOT, or transient occupancy tax, but that the tourism industry is constrained by visitors that come for one event and they don't stay to spend additional time to generate that TOT or that sales tax or whatever, and that we needed to really come up with some strategies to deal with that. And that project entitlements in the planning process have to be flexible, predictable, and practical to achieve the city's vision. Developers and residents need to think that projects are doable. So very quickly, I'm going to give you a snapshot of Pacifica's economy, which you'll also see in the report. It's a small economy with 39,000 residents, 21,000 employed workers. There are 21,000 workers that are employed here, with 18,000 that commute to other employment centers. The daytime population, though, shifts to 21,000 people, which constrains the success rate of retail and service business establishments. There is nearly 90,000 square feet of vacant commercial space, most of which is concentrated in Eureka Square and Lindemar Shopping Center. There are 530 private sector employers that generate 4,400 jobs, and 40% of the private sector jobs are in low-wage occupations. So with that, I'll let Steve share with you the additional strategies that were generated in the plan.
Thank you, Susan. So what we're doing with this information that we collect, that Susan primarily collected through the interviews, plus the data, plus meeting with the committee each month, we started devising ways to improve the economy and diversified and improved the fiscal base. So some ways to be considered that the plan reflects is attracting employers that provide a full spectrum of jobs, including those that have high wages. The challenge you have here is you have a lot of retail service jobs that pay low wages, and a labor force that is heavily engaged in the technology, high technology economy of the county. You don't have that. Related to that is how does Pacifica do something to be a game changer in the local economy? A way forward to be considered is to allow for the development of new high quality space, business space that will be attractive to research and development or technology firms. Small, not big, not for large employers, but research and development type of employers. And related to that is the long-term challenge of overcoming resistance to developing new business space in the community. And the maturation, the tourism industry, as Susan mentioned, tourism industry is doing, quite well here on many levels. It's a maturation process to try to encourage more longer stays, more overnight visits, and special events that will attract a larger number of people from out of the community in here. Next, please. So some findings. Pacifica's economic development opportunities are constrained by the lack of business space available. The 90,000 square feet of vacant space is there, but they don't match with the demand that's out there for technology, biotech, or any kind of R&D type of work that would pay high wages, which are being paid already, and more importantly, retain some of those out commuters in the community back here, and I guess most importantly, generate good fiscal impacts for the city. Next, please. Now, without those changes, the economy will continue to underperform without a plan for new business space. And it will be continue to be dominated by low-wage retail, personal service, and tourism jobs. The Development of new business space ultimately require a partnership, as Susan mentioned, between the city and private property owners. Key sites like the quarry, it must be important to know that these key sites are privately owned, and they cannot really be developed until an owner emerges that intends to invest and willing to invest in a way that the community can support. The city can require, important to know, the city can require when those owners do emerge that the property owner and or developer build some new high-quality office or laboratory space. That can be a term of requirement similar to what you're doing in a different way with the Beach Street property. Next, please. Okay, so we have a package of recommendations, 7. They're in 7 categories, economic development objectives, and 32 recommendations. Couple things to say before presenting these. 1, the plan is not a policy document. It is not setting. Recommendations are really a starting point on how to improve the local economy. They are not policies. Secondly, they're not static or literal. It is the nature of each one of these 32 recommendations as you start moving forward that they will be drilled down, looked at in more detail, and fundamentally altered to fit current conditions. So the details really have to be worked through at another level that's below this plan, which is a roadmap, or a starting point. Next, please. So our first set of recommendations are fit around the need to generate citizens' support to engage in economic development. So 3 goals, 3 recommendations is the goal itself should be to improve the city's fiscal sustainability. Second recommendation is the tools that you need to guide economic development actions. So one tool you have been going through for a while is the general plan, and we're recommending completing that. And I know there's been good logical reasons why that's not been completed. But in addition, with this economic development plan, you can take much of this information and incorporate it into a general plan economic development element, which would be a policy document. So that's just another task down the road. Then, in order to implement any of these recommendations, you really need some capacity. So depending on funding, one option is hiring a full-time coordinator. A second option is to hire a consultant if resources are not sufficient that will help you transition into having that full-time. Next, please. So, second group of objectives are around business attraction and retention. So we have a bunch of recommendations here. This is the most thick slide. 1, establish a business retention program as an early warning system. 2, partner with San Francisco Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center to help train entrepreneurs and local entrepreneurs and small businesses. 3rd, study the feasibility of a microloan fund. Establish a Shop Pacifica campaign. 5th, recruit new restaurants that will capitalize on the emerging consumer preference for high-quality, locally grown food, and it's creating a sense of place, enhancing Pacifica as a great place to be. Recruit new recreational businesses that capitalize on the outdoor amenities. 7th, generate local interest in vacant commercial spaces by offering a tour of these spaces to try to drum up possible tenants that are local. And lastly, in this category, support and activate unanticipated business attraction opportunities, which will ultimately emerge. So that's the most thick one. All of those, implementation of all of those require some staff capacity. You can't do any of those. Next is regarding the key sites. One is the quarry, so partner with the quarry property owner whenever one emerges to work together and plan a financially feasible land use mix that the residents in this community support. The second is Calson, smaller site, but a very important site. Same thing. Plan with the property owner a financially feasible land use mix. The difference between Calson and Quarry right now, besides the size of the site, is that the current owner of Calson is motivated to do something. That's not true at the Quarry. Third, continue with the Beach Boulevard redevelopment plan. It's going great. Implement it. Fourth, modify the general plan update to encourage Eureka Square property owners to be more intensively develop the site. We have a problem with that site because the owners are not motivated. But we can encourage them or future owners to develop more density there. There's a lot of great ideas that came out of our meetings about that site. And lastly, reestablish the retail uses at the former Pacifica lumberyard. Next group. Lodging and expand lodging, promote Pacifica as a visitor destination. So solicit and support proposals to expand lodging rooms at any appropriate locations. This is probably your best fiscal impact, is to get more lodging rooms in here. And the occupancy rates are good. It shows plenty of opportunity for expansion from a market perspective. Promote the hotel stays during the off-week and off-season periods. You have no problem getting people here during busy weekends. So consider hotel stay packages that will extend visitors into the off-peak periods. Continue to produce the Pacifica map that you've been produced under the chamber. That's a good map. Continue to produce that and continue to maintain the really good visitor information that's on the chamber's website. Okay, we're getting to the end here. Next, please. Promote Rockaway Beach. There's a lot of, let me back up and say why we think it's important to promote Rockaway Beach as the primary visitor destination. Is because it's one of the real challenges all along here has been Pacifica as a strip along the beach. There's a whole bunch of pods of places, but not one central business place. Rockaway Beach is different than the other places because it has attractive architecture. It has your best destination businesses are there that have a lot of private sector money in marketing it. And it's a nice promenade and a nice beach area there. So all of those things make it a natural, attractive place where that can be a kind of a central focus of community activity if you choose to move in that direction. That's the logic behind promoting Rockaway Beach. Now, in doing that, if you choose to do that, then you need to brand it as a food and lodging visitor destination. It already is that, but it could be branded much better. Special events could be attracted there. Visitor serving retail could be attracted there. There's not much, in fact, it's going the other way. Looking to working with local businesses to normalize the business hours, improving signage. And lastly, let me mention that there's been a lot of pushback in the report about a recommendation to incorporate Fog Fest into Rockaway Beach. That was an idea. As Fog Fest is successful, it might need another place down the road. And as I said before, there's 32 recommendations here, and each one needs to be drilled down. So if this one doesn't work, we have 31 other recommendations. It's not a problem. The bigger thought behind this is Rockaway Beach as a key visitor destination for Pacifica and how to make that happen. Next,
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Real quick? I think you mentioned, and this is just going back in the Economic Development Committee meetings, about the Fog Fest, and that the way I remembered it, maybe I'm not remembering correctly, was that Fog Fest is popular, you mentioned that, and that you could maybe do something as well at Rockaway. It wasn't like moving the whole thing over, is how I remember it, but please clarify. Like if you said, oh, there should be a dance there at night or something there, you know what I mean? There was something that would be in addition to. Was that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's, if you look at the report, it says incorporate. It never says relocate or move. So there was no intention to suggest anything should be relocated or moved. It was incorporated, and to make it work better in Rockaway as the Fog Fest is successful, if the people that organize want to do that, and if the city wants to do that. It has to be something that everyone wants to do that makes a natural, logical sense. Obviously, right now, that doesn't make sense. It's not something that should go forward at this moment, but it could in the future. Did that make sense? The answer? Okay. So 6.
It made sense, but one of the things that you got a lot of feedback about that the committee also discussed was that there were a number of possibilities for events, and that didn't get as strongly reflected in the report, in all fairness to the folks that gave you feedback.
You mean special events?
Yes.
Well,
there could be other special events,
absolutely.
and we talked about a bunch of different ideas.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That is the more effective way to go.
But it didn't get reflected in the report with that same, so that's why you got some pushback, I think. Just saying.
Yeah. So number 6, in order to make it more effective in our tourism promotion, we need more money. And we came up with some good, I think some reasonably good ideas for getting more money. First is the city and the BID, the BID that promotes the city, generates $65,000 of revenue. That's how the funding is generated, is through BID fees. That could be expanded by either expanding the geography of the BID district or by bringing more businesses in, i.e. restaurants, destination retail, and so forth. So that's one option out there. Another option is public-private partnerships in promotion, which is the private sector is promoting their business. The hotels are promoting their business, the restaurants are promoting their business. Rather than creating some kind of parallel promotion, we could offer grants to basically supplement private spending, private promotional investments, with the goal of making it more effective, leveraging money and expanding resources. And the last recommendation here is with the regional county Silicon Valley tourism bid, just get them engaged more and involved more than they are now to bring their services here into Pacifica. Last one of these, Palmetto Corridor revitalization. So one, continue with the infrastructure and streetscape improvements that are doing well. Second, consider creating a specific plan that to guide future investment. This is going to involve getting property owners to help fund it. It's not just a city thing, it's a property owner would fund it. and reach out to the corridor businesses to address opportunities and constraints and deliver assistance. Okay, last I want to make some conclusions. Pacifica has a great location in the heart of one of the most vibrant regional economies in the U.S. The beauty and environment of the beach location, proximity to Silicon Valley, the airport, and San Francisco make it a great place to be and live. We have a network of wealthy, successful individuals in this town that also invest in new technology business startups, and they would like to invest here in Pacifica if they could. The lack of quality business space constrains the city's ability to attract new business startup investment. Now, on the retail side, Pacifica is a very challenging place for retail and service establishments, small daytime population, seasonality of tourism, and strong competition in nearby cities. The economic development plan is a starting point to strengthen, diversify, and activate the local economy. It's not a policy document. Recommendations are not set in stone. Many details have to be worked through and modified as the city pursues implementation. And that is what we have to say. And we are open for questions and comments.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Just one other question. I appreciate your clarifying some of why Rockaway stood out so much, because we talked about the other areas in town, and some of the feedback I received was about, well, what about Manor, and that was like hardly mentioned, or Lindemar or Park Mall. And while they were in the analysis of the shopping malls and our sort of the analysis section, recommendations weren't really there for those areas, and that left people kind of feeling like that wasn't there. And I am so appreciative over and over that this is about a first pass, where we are kind of thing, recommendations. Would you concur, and why didn't you mention those other areas?
Well, we're looking for game changers, something that will be significant. Now, there are two possible game changers. One is the addition of business space. Now, this does not directly answer your question, but one of them was the business space issue that will attract startup investment. And the other is in tourism. And with the tourism, there's nothing wrong. The tourism is great, but it lacks a central focus. And Rockaway Beach is that place. Lindemar is, I come to Pacifica, I'm a tourist. Lindemar is a shopping center. It's not an attractive place for a tourist unless you want to go to the store for some, or Starbucks for some reason. Same thing with Manor. So we didn't try to look at every one of the shopping centers and come up with solutions for each or shopping districts would be a better term for them, and try to come up with solutions for them. We really looked at what is going to be a fundamental benefit to the city, what can really improve your fiscal base and keep some of these people that are commuting over the hill in town during the day.
And just to add to that, I mean, I think we were really looking at destinations, that would sort
Can't quite hear you, Susan.
Oh, sorry. That we were looking at destinations that would really sort of unify the districts, because one of the things that we heard a lot was that there were these great business districts throughout town, but they weren't connected to each other in any kind of a way. Mm-hmm. And so we were looking for those connectors, and we thought Rockaway was maybe one of those.
Okay. And then my only other question was really about, this is not a land use document, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just want to reinforce that. Thank you.
Councilmember Irvin?
So I think the most interesting, many interesting things in this report, but what really, made me think a lot is just when you said that, talking about small new technology startups and saying that without these, Pacifica will continue to underperform. And on top of that, we have basically what you're considering 2 potential locations for those business startups, correct? Which is the Calson property and the quarry.
2 obvious ones.
Okay.
But maybe there's something out there that could emerge that we haven't looked at. Those are complicated land sites.
Right, definitely. Yeah, thank you. And then the other question I had, sorry, was just if you could comment on you were talking about, what was it, the microloan fund and business retention program. If you could comment on exactly what you meant by those programs?
Yeah, they're very different.
Okay.
The business retention program, there's best practices models out there. You need a staff person. There's to go out, and it's done in various ways. I mean, in some sense, you have that here. I think it's the mayor's outreach program. It was expanded in a broader way, could be that, where representatives of the city, whether they are elected public officials or city staff or both, go out and meet with businesses, listen to them, find out what is their
problems,
their situation. Are they going to hire? Are they going to lay off? Are they have problems with the city in any way? What is it that we, the city, can do to make your business more successful? So that's one. The microloan program is a model throughout the world now of really small loans, and they've been done through private banks that might loan less than $5,000 to entrepreneurs that would need some kind of leveraging on a larger scale. But it's going to take some interaction with someone from the city to get the private banks involved here. They are involved in the region with these microloan programs. We just don't have it here.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councilmember Degree?
I marked it, now I can't find it. Do you want to go to somebody else for a minute?
Mike, do you have any questions? No?
Pretty self-explanatory.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Couple questions. So thank you for, it kind of seems like 2 parts, right? It's like the findings, a lot of our demographics, a lot of those numbers about how many people are leaving town. I guess it makes sense, right? Because you see the restaurants at night. My office is in Park Mall, and there's the pizza place back there, and it's kind of a ghost town during the day. But then at night, it's there's really a lot of people there because everyone's coming home. So those findings were very interesting. And I guess the second part of it is kind of like the where, and where is always, there are all a lot of recommendations, but these key sites that you have, and I think it's not a big surprise of where these larger undeveloped sites are, because there aren't a lot of them in Pacifica, so they're quite obvious. And I think those are things, and I thank you for putting in your report that those are things that we're going to have to figure out in the general plan, and lots of community discussions about land use. But I think this is really setting the stage for the challenges that Pacifica has and how to improve them. Can you touch on Eureka Square a little bit? Councilmember Irvin brought up the 2 sites, Calson and the quarry, as to regards to bringing in the head of household jobs. But tell me about Eureka Square. Do you think that there's any potential there for 10,000, 20,000 square foot space with a reuse?
We actually spoke with the operator of the Oceana Market, whom I'm sure a lot of you know. And we also are aware of the fact that the property owner is not very motivated to do very much with it. There are a lot of vacancies there and things like that. What could make some sense is to take a look at, again, fostered by interest by the property owner, would be to reach out to the property owner to look at doing sort of a more non-traditional project that was more mixed use, that you would have housing, so you would have people that would use the retail that's there, so that you would create another sort of gathering place for the city, because that's one thing that that we heard a lot was that there wasn't really very, very many opportunities for central gathering places. And again, why Rockaway emerged a couple of times in our comments and things like that. And I don't know what else you'd like to add.
Well, I would just add that it's not just the owner of Oceana Market, but there are multiple individuals that we talk to in town that have good ideas about that site for essentially more density, more commercial space and residential space. All of the details are irrelevant because the property owner's not showing an interest at this point. But that's there's an opportunity out there. It's one of those problem sites where we're dealing with a property owner doesn't care, for lack of a better term. And what do we do from the city's perspective to encourage the private sector to invest and make changes in that site, which many people believe would be feasible? It's a strong economy here that you can capitalize on, or that an owner, a motivated and well thought through owner, could capitalize on.
One of the things also that stood out in the report was you said the lack of high quality commercial space. So when we have these like Lindemar Center, Fairmont, Manor's a little different because it's privately owned, and they're all condos there and a lot of owners there. But one of the things that I found when I was doing the mayor walks were that the rents at Fairmont and Lindemar are extremely high. And then you'd go to maybe places like Rockaway, you'd have some vacant space tucked away, or in Park Mall there's vacant space that's not very expensive at all. So you have this really expensive high traffic. So can you tell us the difference between the kind of high quality and then the challenges that we're having in those other spots, and why the difference in traffic or in price?
When we use the term high quality, we're really trying to target that for who would occupy the space. So what we're talking about are our business space that would be attractive to a technology or biotechnology startup company, for example, that might have 10 employees right off the bat, that may or may not need lab space, may just need high access internet. Well, I mean, the details need to be worked out, of course, but all those spaces that you've pointed out, that are accurately pointed out, that are available, are roughly described between 2,000 and 4,000 square feet, and they're tucked away into shopping centers. That's not attractive to business startups that are engaged in, let's say, the regional or world economy. They want higher amenities. So it's not just the quality of space, it's where the space is located, what it looks like, what's the surrounding environment, and so forth. So think of it in a larger scale as an office park you might see San Mateo, less all that glass and all of that cement, but something that could really be fit small scale in Pacifica, but fit the business needs of the strong emerging economy we have here.
So I know in your report the focus is on, attracting that segment of the economy that we don't currently have. But I mean, I think a lot of the feedback that I hear from the residents here is that, you have the retail stuff that we have, a lot of, like you said, service oriented, because there's people here, not a lot of business to business stuff or a lunch crowd, but a lot of services. How can one center be pretty high, extremely high rents? I mean, some of them 800 square feet and they're like $4,000 a month, and then there's a ton of vacancies. That seems kind of, to the person says this doesn't make any sense. Can you explain why that is?
I mean, that's what the market will bear. I mean, that's the basic answer is that
But why
you
is
have a
the
national-
market that way?
Well, I mean, part of the reason is, the demand in Lindemar is much higher than the demand in some of these smaller retail strips. But I think one of the things that can happen that hasn't happened yet, and I think that the mayor's business outreach visits are really important, is a really important way of getting that kind of market intelligence that you gained, which was, that the rents are extremely high in certain centers. And I've had really good experience in cities like Palo Alto and Redwood City, where you go out and you create relationships with those landlords, and you talk to them about, yes, we understand you need these anchor tenants, Safeway and Starbucks, that can drive those big rents, but could we not dedicate this portion of the center, for small mom and pop businesses? And it's about building those relationships and being able to populate those spaces after having built those relationships. But again, what keeps bubbling up is you don't have the capacity. You don't have somebody who's going out there, besides the mayor, who's able to go out there once in a while, but then who follows up on that market intelligence that you've gained and that opportunity that you've gained. So that's how you fix some of those inequalities, I think.
Sue?
Just to add one last thing about the rents. It's not always logical.
No.
Good. Sue, you ready with your questions?
Right. Well, that was, that was one of them, the Eureka one. So am I understanding that you did contact the Eureka owner, and they just didn't want to?
No, the owners are apparently reclusive, and people have tried years to contact those owners. So we contacted the owners' contacts, realtors, tenants, but the owners we didn't really try. We didn't have the time.
But the contacts, did they say anything? I mean, at one time they wanted condos, I know that.
Oh, I think what the little feedback we got that people that deal directly with the owners is that the owners are very difficult to deal with, and that they are very unclear about what they want. But I say actions follow actions, not words, and the actions show lots of vacancies, high prices, which give me a message they don't care.
Okay,
for whatever reason.
In your report, you also mentioned transportation, but I didn't see it here. So do you want to comment on?
Sure. It's not there's a lack of public transportation. That is a constraint, and it is a constraint in the new, the new technology economy that we have, and the kind of labor force that works in new technology that wants to get to work on public transit, less car oriented. So it will be a challenge going forward. I'd say it's a pretty high priority. It's not a direct economic development project, but it's an important project to try to improve public transit access into Pacifica.
And the normalization of business hours, how serious is that?
I mean, we pulled that out for Rockaway, but we found it in other centers. And what we found were that there were, and I think there are people in the audience that can speak to this, but the businesses closed down on Tuesday. Who knew? I was doing interviews and things there, and I thought, well, I'm going to pop in here and check this out and check that out. Shut down. And it's logical, the reasoning behind it, once you hear it, but if you're a patron that goes there one time, you often don't go back. And so, and then when you take a look at the hours, some of them are closed from 11 to 2. Some of them are closed from 2 to 4. To normalize that a little bit so that when somebody knows, that when they stop down from Fog Fest and they're going to get a burger at Rock and Rob's, that, they're going to be open, and their hours seem to be pretty good. But there are a lot of other sort of marginal businesses that we think would really benefit, from some kind of a normalization within the district. You see in shopping centers, that they have common area sort of practices, and, they say not 5 jewelers in a strip, not, you have to do certain hours. And some of those practices could be applied really effectively to some of these centers and make them perform higher.
That could be what you would call low-lying fruit or something. I have 2 more. I'm a little concerned about, you say that the private partners should be the ones that lead. I mean, I'm just thinking about this site here. We've tried to lead, and we've also not led, and nothing happens in either direction so far, except the entitlements are helping.
Well, this site is different because
Right,
the
but in
city owns
general,
it.
you're saying they should be leading. I'm a little,
Well, it's because that's the kind of world we live in. The private property owners have to initiate change or improvements to their land. Now, we can require things. We can require affordable housing. We can require high-quality office space. We can require parks. All of those things can be required from the public sector to get approval, but we have to keep in mind that whatever we require ultimately has to be financially feasible for the private partner, or it won't happen. They won't go forward with the millions of dollars it will take to invest.
Oh.
So that's what I mean.
okay, thank you. The other one, you mentioned a couple times. One time, I think it was, I don't know if I have the right page, but it was somewhere on there. Very few businesses take advantage of the assets, the natural assets, public beaches, ocean access. And you also mentioned that we're a beautiful environment and that we don't seem to, the character of a recreational beach town. We don't seem to take advantage of those things. So do you have any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a recommendation that follows, which is go out and actively attract recreational businesses, i.e. surf shops,
that's right.
bike rental places, et cetera, et cetera. Those are one of the recommendations that have to be drilled down to know if that's really feasible. We know that there are recreational businesses in town. Maybe they just need to be better marketed. We don't really know. So it's, again, it's a deficiency, and it's one of the things that, it's an opportunity, and it's one of the things that have to be thought through more carefully.
Thank you.
Councilmember O'Neill?
I just had a question in regards to your report. Is there any particular reason you omitted where we're at now? I mean, I know the council used to get a report of the top like 10 generators of sales tax and stuff like that, but I noticed that's not in your report. And is there any particular reason you omitted that in the report as to where we are now, and this is maybe what we can build on?
You mean with sales tax?
Yeah, sales tax generation. What was the number one industry, number two?
The reason is, let me point you back to that slide, the last slide that's up there. Pacifica is a challenging location for retail and service establishments due to its small daytime population, seasonality, and not on there, it should be very strong competition in nearby communities. The opportunities for retail are very difficult. We recommend we recommend that you try to improve the retail market, but that is not the emphasis because of its limitations economically for the reasons that are up there in the third bullet. We recommend the items I mentioned earlier, the game changers.
Well, my concern is you're not like, because obviously this is being read by the public, right? And now the public doesn't know what the starting point is, where we're starting. And these are if I remember correctly from the last one, the number one sales tax generator is gas stations. Okay, and if this is something the public should realize that when the Shell Oil at Fassler and Highway 1 close their tanks and redo them, which seems to be every 6 months, that cost the city $50,000 that month. Okay, and I think just an educational viewpoint, that I think it's good to let everybody know this is where we start, this is the start line, and these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses, okay? Another thing is, have you ever been anywhere where they've looked at some sort of vacancy ordinance on commercial?
Say more. What are you thinking about? Vacancy.
Pardon?
Tell me more. Elaborate that question more. What kind of
we have a lot
ordinance?
of, your statement of the market will bear, okay? Well, the market doesn't seem to bear. Some of these buildings have been empty for over a year, okay? I mean, the old Hallmark at Lindemar has been almost 2 years, I think, or 3 years. And the market obviously is not bearing that because no one's willing to pay the fee. I know I did call Kimco at once, and I went to their website, and they had everything color-coded, and Safeway, Ross, and Rite Aid were all subject to 30-day notice to move out. Okay, because they had them color-coded as to when the lease came up, and apparently when your lease comes up at Lindemar, unless you sign a new lease, you get to pay the old rent. So naturally, they're not going to kick out Safeway, Ross, or that. So, but what I'm looking at and want a question and answer of is a vacancy ordinance for commercial, meaning, okay, you have, somebody moves out, you have 6 months. After 6 months, there's some fee due the city to make up for that lost revenue so that maybe we can hire an economic development director.
On the surface, this sounds like a good idea. I think the attorneys in the room would be interested in that. I don't know.
Well, I was just wondering, have you ever heard of it or seen it or been in any city that does?
You know, a little different than that. Like in Palo Alto, for example, when you exceeded a 5% vacancy rate, then you could do a conditional use permit for retail space on the ground floor, so that there were triggers. So I think that what you're talking about is a trigger. And I mean, I think you could design what those triggers were, and I don't know from a legal standpoint how you're able to do that, and I think that it's part of, you know, your zoning. But I mean, I think that you could design what the triggers are, you know, subject to legal review, and determine how you deal with that.
From my perspective, it's not out of the question to look into that. That's a pretty good idea worth looking into.
I mean, it's happened with foreclosures. I mean, there are vacancy ordinances, you know, about, you know, a property can only stay vacant for a certain period of time after it's foreclosed on, and then the bank has to do certain kinds of things, and there's a whole prescribed list of things that they are, but I've not heard about it for a short term, like 6 months or anything, so
Well, I'm only speaking of commercial property, not residential. Is there any way to do have you ever heard of, like at Lindemar Center, you see the sign for Safeway, you see the sign for Ross, whatever, but you don't see any sign for the jewelry store, you don't see any sign for Palm City, the taco place. Can you install a sign ordinance so that there's actually the little board that actually Eureka Square has something like that, where it lists all the different merchants in there? Is that something we can control by sign ordinance or something?
I don't know, but I would guess not. And the reason I would guess that, and Susan might have a different opinion, is that that's private property. You can force the shopping center owner, if it's, I don't know if that shopping center is owned by one company.
It is both Fairmont and Lindemar are owned by Kimco.
Okay, so you can talk to and negotiate with the property owner about that, but I'm not sure you can require the property owner to manage his holdings in any certain way related to signage. What do you think?
I just wanted to comment. I think we're getting into what you were talking about, is that each of these points could be drilled down in a bunch of different ways, and what you've given us is some suggestions in this. Is that my understanding? And we're now demonstrating to you that we could go into the weeds on any one of these.
Yeah, you have a framework now, you know.
Okay, because we're pretty far into the weeds, yeah. Okay, got it.
Councilmember Irvin, you want to ask a couple questions?
No, I'd like to let the...
All right, we have some cards from the public. All right. First one, we have Courtney Connellan, then, thank you very much. Then Cheryl Carlson, Joanne Gold.
I like that description, Marianne. Weeds. Yeah. So again, good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Courtney Conlon, CEO of the Pacifica Chamber of Commerce. And in regards to the economic development final report, we would like to compliment the extensive plan that was set forth by the economic development consultants. It's nice to finally see an economic development plan that literally spells out objectives and recommendations for economic development, along with marketing initiatives that will help promote Pacifica as a tourist destination. And as we all know, Pacifica is a unique place to live, work, and operate a business. That being said, our biggest challenge is to draw the type of industry and/or technology that will put our community to work while staying in town and spending in Pacifica. This is a new time for Pacifica. The Chamber has been working hard over the past few years to help market Pacifica as a tourist destination. We have also embraced and welcomed new businesses and do our best to patronize and promote those businesses that have been with us for years. We know the Chamber is an asset to Pacifica. However, we know that we can be called on to do more. We have the talent and the resources, the years of experience of successful business minds that sit on our board of directors. And with that, I want to personally thank our board of directors and all the businesses who have helped us achieve these goals. We look forward to working with the city upon implementation of these various objectives and recommendations, of which there are two key recommendations, which recommends the hiring of an economic development consultant as, and if economically feasible, an economic development coordinator, and if feasible, then hiring an economic development consultant. And we believe that the Chamber of Commerce is and can be more instrumental in assisting the city generate a new culture when it comes to developing economic development and or bringing new businesses to Pacifica. To that point, we would appreciate council to look at the Chamber as an integral resource, especially if the city does hire an economic development coordinator and or consultant. We also request that the city consider having that person work out of the Chamber office so we can work more closely together and continue effectively focusing on one of our core competencies, which is establishing and maintaining economic development, which in turn creates more jobs, all helping towards building a stronger local economy. Thank you.
Cheryl Carlson.
I'm Cheryl Carlson. I'm the co-owner of the Carlson site, one of the key opportunity sites for development. Ron is not able to be here tonight due to illness, but he has participated in some of the comments. Ron and I recommend for the additional item in the agenda about the proposed land use language, we recommend that it was not created with any input from us. It has no transparency, and we recommend that council send it back with instruction they withdraw the recommendation or get more input. With regards to the plan, we have issues around the process to its final development and the actual recommendation. So the process, we met with Susan Barnes February 4th with promises of follow-up, which didn't occur. We did discuss residential and commercial. We brought up the idea of a private public partnership. We were never contacted by Mr. Wallstrom or the EDC or planning staff. There is no mention of the Carlson site on the EDC website, agenda, or meeting minutes. And it's like it was created in a vacuum, this plan. We weren't even notified of the presentation tonight. We were notified by another Pacifica resident, and I think that's unacceptable. As for the recommendation, we believe that Class A office, commercial, or laboratory space is unrealistic now or in the future, and it doesn't solve Pacifica's current needs for revenue. If we would have been contacted, you would have understood that we did reach out to numerous commercial real estate brokers, SBA lenders, office developers, businesses, education, and medical facilities directly, all of which look upon the site as being too remote and unsupported. What wasn't considered was the recommendation of General Plan Update Diet and Badia, the Planning Commission recommendation, the city housing element prepared by the city's planning staff, that all point to the most compatible use would be housing with a park. What Mr. Wallstrom states is that the city should require the property owner to develop new high-quality office or laboratory space that could attract investment by technology and software entrepreneurs, because the private market will not build this space without the city's requirement. As for what is in the report, we do support low-density residential with open space for a park. We would consider other proposals, including commercial, and we would listen to public-private partnership. And then why is our property not marketed? Please tell me how you would market a property when the zoning is questioned, there is no GP update designation, and now with this report, a very narrow opportunity. We would like you to send it back to EDC with instruction to set a meeting with all property owners. I heard that not all property owners were even interviewed.
Joanne, I have to
feedback
ask
and
you to stop.
discussion.
It's been 3 minutes. Sorry about that. Be happy to talk with you after. Mary Keitelman and Danny Estrella.
Oh, wait, she has another, is there another name?
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped you. I'm so sorry. I already put you in the pile. Joanne Gold? Pardon me.
Don't put me in the pile. I promise I'll be fast. My name is Joanne Gold, and I'm a Pacifica resident for 13 years. I moved to Pacifica to raise my family and to dig in roots, and I am deeply invested in the vitality and the growth of our community. I'm here to comment, to ask for a continuance on agenda item number 10, the approval of the Economic Development Plan, pending a public hearing so that the public can have time to consider and comment, since it affects future land use for the city of Pacifica. And I'm going to refer to my notes so I can get this in on time. An economic development plan should be limited to general policies, not prejudicial site-specific plans or project types for specific parcels. If the City Council is approving the economic development plan with site-specific plans and land use policy designations ahead of the general plan, then there needs to be a proper opportunity for input and possibly a CEQA review. There were also recommendations by the Economic Development Committee to make changes in this plan that the consultants did not include. I think, Councilwoman Nyhard, you mentioned there were some omissions, and Mayor Stone, there were some inconsistencies with what you recalled. Specifically, there were recommendations that were asked to be included by the Economic Development Committee to recommend the Callison property be kept as commercial recreational zoning as it currently stands, possibly to include recreational businesses, and language to be added to recommend Shamrock Ranch as a possible world-class equestrian center. But there are very many good things in the objectives that were stated in this plan, and I have to say, promoting Pacifica as a visitor destination and recruiting new recreational businesses that can capitalize on Pacifica's oceanfront and other environmental assets are great ideas, and it's consistent with the broad-based community feedback I have heard as a member of this community and have had with my neighbors. But it was inconceivable to me how the summary recommendations point to site-specific project development focused solely on developing technology businesses and R&D lab spaces. It's just completely disconnected from the goals and the opportunities of developing Pacifica as a visitor destination. What was most objectionable about this plan was that it has an overwhelming tenor in the document that is decidedly partisan, anti-community, and contemptuous of residential organizations. It starts in your very first summary page, the fourth paragraph. Overcoming local opposition to land use change is critical to the city's economic success and fiscal sustainability. On page 20, it's spelled out in greater detail. A well-organized group of Pacifica residents and stakeholders are resistant to land use change, which increases difficulty, cost, and time necessary to develop vacant and underutilized sites. Citizen activist groups possess the strength to disrupt development plans, regardless of whether the development sites are properly zoned for business uses, as evidenced by past opposition to developing the Quarry and Callison sites. I'm incensed. That's just not appropriate, and it is a complete disregard for the community input. I urge you not to accept this plan.
Thank you. Mary Keitelman and then Danny Estrella.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I agree with the previous speaker as far as I urge you not to accept this for a lot of the same reasons, but I don't know all of the technical things that either of the two previous speakers do know. I went to the presentation at the Economic Development Committee. I was pretty much surprised. And I wrote you a little letter, which I shot you by email. And I just want to let you know why I am shocked. I don't think there was any community outreach, but basically, let me just read this. I oppose this because it edits the general plan with no public input. We spent the last couple of years working on the general plan. That's a public communication. These are public inputs that need to be said. And I do agree with the previous speaker. I never thought of it this way, that the document is totally prejudiced to site-specific results. This community, the community of Pacifica, loves their Fog Fest. They weren't even consulted on the ideas for that. The community has said many things about developing the quarry. I didn't realize that Shamrock, that the developer here, anyway, they wanted to develop the quarry, Shamrock Ranch, the Kelson property, and they had ideas for that. I didn't know the first speaker here. I'm very, very surprised to hear all that. I oppose the document. It's riddled with factual errors, errors of omission and typos. Number one, no mention is made of real economic opportunities for Pacifica due to the opening of Highway 1 south of Pacifica, which is a real opportunity. When that opens to bikes, we should be there with shops, bike rentals, boogie board rentals, weekend stay packages. No mention was made of the effects of the potential widening on Highway 1, what it will have on the effects of our economic community. Number two, sea level rise and rapid coastal erosion of the coast, and yet it advocates development west of Highway 1. And the last point, it ignores the destruction of Rockaway by the potential and proposed widening of Highway 1. Thank you for your consideration. I know you guys work hard.
Danny Estrella.
Thank you. I'm going to be echoing the sentiments of the previous speakers, too. I request a continuance on this item, too. I don't think we should accept this tonight. I see that it's a good document. It's a very good start. There's a lot of good ideas in this. And I think what we need is someone local who really knows Pacifica and Pacificans and the history to work within this plan to really bring forth the best that Pacifica has and can offer through this document. It's a little confusing whether it's pushing for commercial recreational or for the Class A business laboratory uses. It's a little confusing in that regard, as well as there are a lot of factual errors in the document. It puts Shamrock Ranch at Sweeney Ridge, and we know where Sweeney Ridge is, and we know where Shamrock Ranch is, and we wouldn't want to have those kind of errors in a document that we're going to be working from. It's just too much confusion. And again, what Joanne said about the tone about this, some of the comments there are just very derogatory about the citizens of Pacifica, people who are passionate about Pacifica and believe in our future and the development that we want. But to term us as citizen activists or that we are resistant to change, no, we're not resistant to development, we're resistant to bad idea development. You can look at Sharp Park and take a look at along the coastline. It's just hard to accept that we have California coastline that's developed with industry, storage lockers, trailer parks there, when there could have been quality business there. And I commend the plan for this space here is something that is just ideal with this location here. And that's the way we should be thinking, is from within Pacifica and take the ideas from their plan and move forward with those. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's the last card I have, so I'll bring it back to council. Mayor Pro Tem, you want to comment?
I just want to say to all the speakers, the sentiments that I've heard tonight I've heard been echoed at various points in economic development meetings. I apologize to Councilmember O'Neill for being kind of flippant about into the weeds, but I recall numerous Economic Development Committee meetings where I was right out there with you. I would hear an idea and I would go down this pike much as we have repeatedly tonight, and not recognize that this document has no policy making whatsoever, nor was it intended to do so, period. It's not a land use document. I got a little frustrated because I wasn't at the last economic development meeting. I would not accept the additions from the economic. This is either we accept this report as the opinion from the consultant as is, or, you know, we kind of throw it out. It's an opinion piece. It's based on a set of data that's presented in here and some other assessments. And, you know, I have to say, like, I mean, I just think about at one point in time, we had a plan that Palmetto, and you can ask people that were around in the 50s, Palmetto was the road into town. And like going down the road into town in many of rural Iowa towns that I grew up in, the road into town was littered with recycle yards and storage bins and all kinds of stuff, and then you had a center of town. That was the thought about Palmetto. We are recovering from that because we're now in the 2000 and we realize that this is prime real estate and we have to change our plan. But that's land use, and we're getting into that in the whole process of the general plan. The economic development plan, the things that I got from this that were most useful was looking at our leakage. How much leaves town during the day versus how much is here. Actually, we get that tax report all the time. I appreciated knowing that, you know, we have the proximity of what stores and looking at those stores in that table. It was a very interesting thing to see all the big boxes and then start to think about, okay, well, what kind of retail is left over from that? Not a lot. So then how do we market it and how do we look at it? I also saw a whole bunch of different kind of recommendations, sometimes conflicting. I know that being someone from the outside, you wouldn't know, but I have to tell you, as one of those people that has rabble-roused in town, it sounded a little condescending to talk about groups, and so I'll give you that. But the recommendation 14 on the Calson property was that the city partner with the Calson property owner to plan a financially feasible land use that the community can support. That seems like a pretty reasonable kind of recommendation to me. And when we got into those details and the weeds, and I think what you meant as examples, then we got off the rails and we got away from the true path of the plan. And, you know, for what it's worth, I got what I needed out of this, and it gave me some suggestions, and some of them wouldn't pass muster. I mean, this is a process of acceptance, not adoption. I'm going to say that again. This is a process of accepting the report as one person's opinion or one group's opinion from their assessment of the community, not adoption of a policy, not a land use document, not any of those kinds of things. And in that vein, I'm fine with it. It's what it is. I don't agree with some things in it. I don't like the way some things were stated, but it gave me a lot of interesting food for thought.
Councilmember Irvin.
Just a few things. I agree with everything that Mayor Pro Tem Nyhart just said. I think it is important that we remember that this is in fact a list of recommendations and an overview of our current economic state. And I agree there are things that I would potentially change in the language, and maybe some missed opportunities with conversations with a variety of very significant individuals in Pacifica. And so we acknowledge that going forward, that we understand that and we know that. So I'm thinking that it would be pretty important to potentially change the proposed action from acceptance of the plan with the direction to staff that it be considered during future land use decisions to something that would say acceptance of the plan with the direction to staff to be considered during future land use and economic development initiatives as recommendations moving forward, or something to that extent where it's very clear that this is not a report, a standard, something that we are going to go forward with and initiate. This is simply opinions and recommendations from a fresh set of eyes that came and spoke to a variety of different individuals in our city, and this is what they came away with. And we as council people and city staff understand the way Pacifica works and what the people, and I think it is important going forward, especially developing the general plan and everything else, that we get lots of public input, and that is important to us as a council, and we do have every intention of incorporating your views into any future decisions that we make regarding land use or economic development decisions.
Councilmember Degree.
I still think that the way it's stated is not what we should be doing. I don't know if you want to play around with changing plan even, because that's a very strong statement, to economic consultants' suggestions. Second part, I would say that we need this to become our community. The stakeholders were like 26 and 42. That's a very small number compared to trying to outreach to the entire community. And I also saw the statements as derogatory, and in July, I sent about 4 pages where I went through the entire document trying to indicate that things could be said in a different way. I think as council, knowing our residents, that we need to clean up some of that language so that it's not in perpetuity. I think there are some excellent points. They did recognize that tourism is obviously very important, and that we've been doing a good job of tourism, and that we need to work more on the stayovers. I think that I'm very happy to see, you've heard me saying our environment is our economy, which I've always listed as natural assets, history, music, etc. So I'm very happy to see that consultants are looking at the fact that we really do not capitalize on the fact of our ocean community and all its assets. So, I'd like to put that up in bold letters. The easy things that we could be doing, rather than waiting around for future possible developments, is the low-hanging fruit of negotiating with businesses or trying to get a plan with a small p about talking to businesses about different hours of operation and working in conjunction with the chamber and the hotels to maybe work that out so it's flexible and doable for people. The public transportation part, we've tried our bit at that, but I think that if a consultant, sees that in comparison with other communities, we should capitalize on that. I definitely understand where they're saying that retail isn't necessarily going to make it for us, as they were pointing out that that's technically your smaller, is that right? Smaller wage. And that to complement, I don't think they're disregarding what we have as retail, or that we wouldn't want more, such as, ocean-oriented type of things, as they mentioned, recreation-oriented, but that what I got was that we're looking for high-wage jobs to be in town, and that at the moment, the market is for biotech, other kinds of technology, and that we're constrained by space. And I actually, some years ago, attended a conference put on by Jerry Hill and another assemblyman from the South regarding biotech and things, and talked to biotech people there, and they actually wanted to come to Pacifica. The problem wasn't looking for a high dignified, high rent area. The problem was space. That was the only thing keeping them out of here, is they came here and talked to our planning director and looked for space where they could have a common area with other techs and share sinks and things like that. So I get that kind of understanding that we need higher wage jobs, and the business retention makes a lot of sense because that's appreciating those that are struggling and have been here, some for 20 years, 15, 13. It's particularly, you know, any area of Pacifica or any other town, but to stay in a city that long, and hang in there through thick and thin. So I see that as, you know, thanking them and trying to be there for them. But so I see all those good things, and I think those are things we can work on right away, but how we send this back to staff is crucial, how we say this. One thing I really do think we have to look at the derogatory terms. And a lot of it's probably around the Kelson and the Quarry, and what was the other one? The Shamrock statements that are derogatory. They're dismissive and derogatory, and they can easily be cleaned up without taking away the positive things that I just mentioned that would enable us to go forward. So I've been trying to play with words on that. I'm kind of half done, which I already started. The acceptance of the economic consultant's suggestions be sent to staff to come back to us, to be agendized for further public comment.
We need to,
We're getting.
I'm sorry, we need to take a break. I beg your pardon, Councilor.
and we also need to take a vote a majority vote to have the meeting
Whether
go
to
past
stay or not?
11.
Can you ask why why would you like to take a break?
But Channel 26 needs to change the tape.
The TV needs to change the tape.
Yes.
And what time is it?
11.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
We were supposed to stop at 10:30, weren't we?
Sorry, there's a lot of, so we can see this at people watching on the web or what have you. We need to take a break. You need a motion.
We need a motion to continue the meeting past 11.
Right.
A majority vote.
Yeah, we're supposed to not.
Okay. Well, how long of a break do you need? Just 5 minutes?
How much time do you need?
2 minutes? Okay.
So we can play with the
I need a motion to take a 2-minute break, though. If, like,
I make a
Councilmember-
motion.
Yes.
Who wants
Make a motion to finish this item after 11. That's what you need the motion for. Okay.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, let's vote.
Oh.
Well, don't we still need to give them a break, so
Yes,
the rest of
going
it's
to,
okay?
but it'll be
So
after
her
11.
motion was to continue this item after 11.
We can do the break without a vote.
It's a
Ready?
Yep. Okay, that passes 5-0. We can continue after 11. Sorry, we're going to take a 2-minute break so PCTV can do their thing.